Hi, this is Mike Redwine of the Louisa Project 2027, and we're here. We're here at the Progressive Army's first ever DNC coverage. We're really proud of how things getting this together. Hopefully, it'll hold together pretty good. We're standing in for Nis, who's usually running the show here. I'm here with Brandon. Brandon, you there?
I'm right here, Mike. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Excited. I'm excited. Aren't you excited?
I'm excited now that I'm listening to you.
Yeah, get pumped. This is the first ever DNC live
Hi,
progressive
this is
army.
this
We
is
got
Mike
people
Redwine of the Louisa
inside,
Project
outside,
2027. We're
upside
here.
down. We're gonna be all over the place. We're doing big things.
All right, good. Well, okay, so Brandon's on fire over there, and I'm happy about that. All right, let's. I guess we're expecting a guest to chime in. Excuse me. We're expecting a guest to chime in soon. Lauren, somebody help me out here. Lauren's a delegate for Bernie, and we're gonna discuss the walkout yesterday from the Rules Committee, and we're basically gonna do that in the beginning. A little bit later, Anoa Changa from The Way is gonna have a panel, and she's gonna take it for like an hour and a half for her panel, and we're just gonna play this thing live. Brandon, what you got?
Well, we got a lot to talk about today. Got the
Mm-hmm.
DNC leaks. We got the
Yeah.
walkout of the Rules Committee, which is what Laura Stein is going to come on here and talk about. She's a delegate from California. We got a
Uh,
bunch of Bernie rallies going on all over the West Coast. It's
uh,
been a rough week for the DNC.
yeah, they've been taking a pounding, and rightfully so, I might add. Uh, so we'll see how things go. When Lauren comes on, she'll talk about the leaks. She'll talk about the walkout. There's a lot of hippies punching back now, which is wonderful. So let's continue on those lines. Brandon, what do you think about these leaks? What have you read so far?
Well, I mean, I think for people like me and you who are just, mired in this kind of thing, we've always felt the DNC was corrupt, and I'm sure our listeners felt that way as well. This doesn't come as a surprise. I think some of the language comes as a surprise. The idea that they were actively trying to keep people ignorant. I see that's the email going around a lot, to distance Hillary Clinton from her Wall Street supporters, distance them from keep people from getting knowledge about that, keep them ignorant. And I think what that says
Mm-hmm.
to me is that they know the Wall Street stuff is bad. They know it's bad publicity. They know it's bad press. They know it's a toxic thing to be associated with. So
Yeah,
it's not like they think this is a good thing. They know that it's bad and they are treating it as such, and they want to keep people ignorant of it.
yeah. It's not yeah. It's not gonna it's not boding well for them. Unfortunately, it's a little close to the actual DNC starting today. Well, starting this week to really pound them and do anything about it. But it's really sad. I mean, as you said, we all felt that the DNC was in the bag for Hillary, which that shouldn't be a surprise with the Clintons being as powerful as they are in Washington, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz being the former co-chair of her campaign from 2008. It should be a surprise to anybody. She was destined to be crowned, and now I guess it's on us what we do with that information from here. Everybody's got to make their own decisions. But some of the stuff I've seen is I hate to sound like a neophyte, but it's troubling. It's really troubling. So I don't I don't particularly have any answers, but I guess time will tell.
For me, I mean, there is plenty of blame to go around. We
Yeah,
can't
absolutely.
just let Debbie Wasserman Schultz be given to the progressive movement as a sacrifice because she was going on her way out anyway. Like she
Yeah,
was like,
yeah,
I would say since a few months ago when people were showing outrage about the ways the debates were scheduled, the
yeah,
way that um, she took money from payday lending scammers. Like she was on her way out anyway. But
yeah,
there's plenty of blame to go around for the Hillary campaign. There's plenty of blame to go around for the staffers who were in these emails, whose names are attached to them. They should
yeah,
not be left off the hook because they were just doing their job. We have to hold people accountable for their actions. And like, they knew what they were doing was wrong. They knew it
yeah,
was wrong. And this comes down, like you said, she was destined to be queen. And so they were just sort of, doing retroactive, uh, revisionist history in the present. They were creating this narrative. They had the end of the story in mind, that we crowned Hillary Clinton, and so everything they did with along those routes was justified.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, everything was in service to that, which was absolutely ridiculous. I try to stay as much nonpartisan as possible, but it's literally for the purpose of the Louisa Project, right? Because we're all about education, and we don't need any bad blood with anyone. But this is ridiculous. It's too much. It really is too much.
It's disgusting. I mean, I'm not nonpartisan. I call it, hey, this is disgusting. This is one of those things that you see in the movies, and this is one of those things that people who are with, I don't want to call us in the know, but people who are more engaged in politics tell their less engaged friends that, you know what, this kind of collusion is happening, and they think of us, the people, as stupid. They think of us as, sheep to be herded, and not people and individuals to be informed. And at the end of the day, you see people now who have been, carrying the Hillary banner, who are now just dropping it because what do you say? Like, I mean, of course, you're always going to have those people who are not going to. This is not going to matter.
Yeah,
I think the Hillary campaign has successfully decentralized Clinton herself from the point of her campaign and made it entirely about Trump.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time reading the DNC platform, the draft that came out on the 1st of July. I don't know if it's changed. I've read the draft. It mentions Trump over 30 times. And
they're pushing that fear.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
They're pushing that fear.
Yeah. Like the point of Hillary's campaign is that Trump can't win. Trump is the best thing that happened to Hillary Clinton in this election cycle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without the monster that Trump is presented as, and probably is, we would not be seeing such people willing to turn such a blind eye to everything she has done over this campaign cycle. The gaffes, the casual racism, the casual classism, the anti-environment stance, the dodging, and now we have these, basically. And also, just from my personal standpoint, let's stop calling it a scandal. I think when you call it a scandal, it brings up this mind of fake outrage. You get the sort of deflate gates. You get the Benghazi gates. It's not a scandal. I mean, it's really messed up. It's just really, really. Well, it's another word I'm not going to say on air, but it's not a scandal.
Yeah, it was really way too casual the way they dealt with it. Okay, and so it looks like we have somebody joining us shortly, so we'll be prepared for that. But as far as how things are going, as far as this whole thing, it was, to my mind, it was way too casual the way they handled this. It was far too casual. So, and that brings it an air of the new normal, and that's not the way this should have been handled. The DNC is charged in the charter, in their own charter, to be an impartial judge of impartial about how this thing works.
Well, two things. I just want to respond to that, Michael. But before I do, I just want to bring up, we have Lauren Steiner coming on, a CA delegate, activist, organizer, delegate for Bernie from California. She's been rabble-rousing. She's going to be on in about 5 minutes. Right. But yeah, I think we need to talk about this idea of impartiality along the DNC, but also the way we have turned nonpartisan into bipartisan. We have, instead of having nonpartisan debates, we have bipartisan debates. Now how that influences the way we view our system. I think it's time to demand, more than bipartisan nonsense, where both parts of the establishment can agree on how they should oppress the people, and start moving towards a nonpartisan, civilian organized debates, as something Jill Stein calls for. Bringing back the League of Women Voter debates, the ones that were organized by outer parties, not something organized by the DNC or by the RNC or by a coalition of the two.
Yes.
We need to really have a nonpartisan electoral system in place to give everyone a fair shot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right now the fare is several $1 million in order to get in, because you need that just to be heard. And that's a barrier that shouldn't be there. There are plenty of people in this country that don't have that kind of money, who could be great leaders, who could help guide us through these tumultuous times. And it's really sad that we're erecting more and more barriers every year, including and up to and including all this money you need to just to be viable.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not trying to say that every rich person is bad.
No, absolutely not.
No one's trying to say that. What I think we're trying to say is that in order to appeal to that specific demographic and to garner that much money, to get to that place, to have that much money, it gives you a unique set of concerns. And so if you're gonna have a debate between a rich Republican and a rich Democrat, you're just not going to touch certain issues.
Absolutely, the social distance is much too great.
Yeah, we need a diversity of opinions within our political system. That's the only way we can have a real democracy. Just getting more rich people in of color, more rich people in of gender is not going to solve the problem. We have to definitely, span just the gamut in terms of socioeconomic class, religion. We need more diverse leadership.
Yeah, absolutely, especially along class lines. I mean, we've gotten away from talking about class in this, and it seems to me it was designed so in this cycle. But people are hurting, and the people who are hurting, they oftentimes have the solutions. I'm not saying that it's going to be all the right answers and everything's going to get fixed just because you let people who are going through problems talk. But there's a source of information, a source of experiences that can be used as a resource that we're failing to do. We're only listening to the rich people that can get on TV, people that are connected, and this is a cabal of maybe max 5,000 people of a country of 330 million people. We're not tapping into those resources, and we're failing in that regard.
Absolutely. We have some people whose voices are just magnified by the demands of the system. So you have our media that is dominated by rich middle class white people who can afford to do these things, or not just white people anymore. We have rich middle class black people who are influencing our media, rich middle class LGBTQ people who are influencing our media, and there are just certain things that they can agree upon because the status quo has put them in a situation where they have garnered these positions, they have garnered this power, they have garnered this sort of platform to espouse their beliefs. And this is just about getting more voices out there. I don't know if I have the solution to any particular problem, but I definitely know that I have a unique set of problems from President Obama, unique set of problems from Cornel West, unique set of problems from a lot of the sort of talking head black people we see on TV. And I just don't want my voice, my story, my political power, my one vote to be defined by rich people of color. I want my voice to be represented by people of color who have experiences that line up with mine, who know what it's like to, have student loan debt, know what it's like to, walk down a street that the sidewalk has not been taken care of for a while. This is not about sort of silencing the rich. This is about not letting the rich or the elite dominate the entire conversation.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And the fact that they do dominate should scare people, because as you said, they have a totally different set of concerns than the rest of us. Not bad, not bad or worse or bad or good. They're just different, right? Some things are in line with what our requirements are for the rest of us in the country. But that it should be alarming that our media and politics and everything else, above a certain level is managed by a small group of people and with different concerns, and that should bother everyone.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Michael. I just got some new information about Lauren Steiner, the activist who's going to join us.
Yes.
Turns out that she is a certified badass and a TPP activist, one of the original fractivists, long-time fighter for progressive causes. So, anyone who's listening now, stay in tune for that.
Yeah, I'm with that.
Yeah, that's going to be something to watch.
Great. All right, it's good that people are staying active. The Occupy Wall Street folks, the folks that have been doing this for a long time, like the folks over at in the in the environmental realm. And I'm so glad people are staying involved.
Absolutely. The revolution can't die here. This
No,
is the first
absolutely
step.
not.
This is the
Absolutely.
first step. And I think that the key is not allowing the populace to fall into this cycle of awakening every 3.5 years and falling back to sleep because they've been convinced that nothing will ever change, and that the only time to be active is the 6 months before the electoral cycle and the 1 month right after it, where everyone is being annoyed at who won. Democracy is an everyday activity. Like every time we talk about the problems around us, we're engaging in democracy. We're trying to change things, even at the minute level. We're educating ourselves and each other. Democracy is going on in our chat room right now. They're talking about Barney Frank. They're talking about Nina Turner. Sort of they have prescriptions for society, and we all have to engage in that kind of activity at a day-to-day level.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
that's the biggest myth in America, that democracy is something that happens once every 4 years, or if you're really good, once every 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that if you simply, if you don't vote, you're not participating in democracy. I'm going to be the bearer of bad news. As an American, as someone in a democratic republic, as someone with the vote, if you do not vote, whether it's for the Green Party or for any party, it's not that you are not participating, it's that you are saying, I don't care who wins. And I think we have to get, this mindset. We have to be more prepared next time. Not to be mean to Sanders supporters, because I am one. We were not prepared for this election cycle.
No, we weren't. We weren't. I think Bernie. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut in, but I think Bernie. I think a lot of us thought when Bernie jumped in, and I think rightly so. I mean, maybe the truth will never be told, that he was just a protest candidate and just wanted to drag the conversation to the left and keep things and keep things from going so far right that we're no longer even that the Dems are no longer even center, because they had this habit of chasing the Republicans, trying to get some sort of cooperation, and they end up over there, near center right and maybe even further in some cases. So I think that's how Bernie came in here, and then all of a sudden he started getting traction after people started hearing him. He's filling stadiums, and you're sort of kind of catching up at that point. People realize, oh man, we better get some sort of infrastructure together. And I think that caught a lot of people by surprise, and ironically, it's unsurprising because we haven't seen a candidate like Bernie get this kind of traction ever, especially somebody like Bernie. Bernie's an older guy. He's not the typical. He's not the typical phenotype of a prototype, rather, of a politician. He's like Martin O'Malley. I mean, you look at a guy like Martin O'Malley, he should have been the guy challenging Hillary. Just based on optics, and he just disappeared. But there was really no room for him. Hillary had the center right all locked up, and Bernie had everything left for her. There really was no space for him.
I mean, before we go into our interview, because Lauren Steiner joined us, I think that there's barely any room for Hillary anymore. There's barely any room for the establishment. Like they've marginalized themselves to the point in which, if we just combine every anti-establishment candidate, any candidate that has any kind of anti-establishment position in this election cycle, we're talking about Gary Johnson, Jill Stein, Bernie Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
Even I would say Trump has, cobbled together a coalition of anti-establishment people.
Absolutely.
A lot of them are racist.
At least on surface, yeah, anti-establishment.
The Ted Cruzes, the Carly Fiorinas, the Ben Carsons. This election should be categorized by a wholesale rejection of establishment politics by the American people.
Agreed.
I mean, no matter what anyone says, that should be the takeaway. The American people, even the voting people, have wholesalely rejected American establishment politics. They've rejected the establishment. They are rejecting Hillary Clinton. What's keeping her afloat is fear, and that is not a sustainable quotation apparatus for a politician.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that we should be emboldened by that. We should be emboldened by this notion that people, no matter what their political affiliation have rejected the establishment and said that they do not represent us. This is a joke. that is being propped up by a very few number of people who have the loudest voices because we said they should, and that it's going to be over soon. So we're getting ready to bring in Lauren Steiner, a fractivist from CA, a Bernie delegate from CA, and she's going to talk to us about a variety of things, specifically the rules walkout that occurred yesterday, TPP probably. We're going to talk about the DNC leaks, how she feels about them. So let's get her on here, Dave.
All right. Hello, Lauren.
Can you unmute yourself? You're still muted, Lauren.
Okay, how's that?
There you go.
Thank you, Lauren.
Hi, guys.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, thank you for joining us.
I'm cool right now because I'm in the air conditioning, but it's about 100 degrees out there in Philadelphia.
Wow.
I know. I was there.
Well, I wasn't there, but you guys, I'm really happy you guys were there. They represent our needs. All right, Lauren. Can you tell us folks a little bit of something about yourself?
Sure. Well, I'm an activist and an organizer from Los Angeles. I've always been pretty left-wing. Voted for Jesse Jackson in the 80s, Ralph Nader when he ran, always voting for the candidate that never gets elected. And I started getting back involved with actions after George Bush started making noises about invading Iraq right after 9/11. But I was doing pretty status quo kind of things, getting money out of politics, Progressive Democrats of America, worked a little bit on John Kerry's campaign. And in 2011, I joined the Occupy movement at the ripe old age of 54. And it radicalized me. I mean, not radicalized me to be like a communist or a black bloc or anything like that, but radicalized me in the sense that I realized that we needed to take more direct action, that just going through the system was not going to work as long as we had the outside influence of money in politics. So I was involved with Occupy for a good long time, ironically, way long after a lot of the young occupiers sort of went back to sleep. And I took what I learned in that movement into fighting fracking and the Trans-Pacific Partnership, education, privatization, and other causes. But those are my three main ones. And I held a lot of protests. As a matter of fact, in 2014, I organized 14 protests. Two of them were at Obama fundraisers. One was for the TPP, one was for net neutrality, which was a big cause that I was involved with, and also fracking at Governor Jerry Brown's event, and even Cuomo, when he came to Los Angeles for a fundraiser, we were asked by our fellow fractivists in New York to greet him. So we were right there with our signs, and my sign said, "Presidential hopefuls don't frack." And as you know, we were successful in getting Cuomo to support that fracking ban in New York. I found out about Bernie. Well, I knew about Bernie, but I met him the first time at a fundraiser in April of 2011. And by that point, I was so disgusted with Obama. During the Q&A session, I asked him if he would please challenge Obama in the 2012 primary. And I'll never forget how he answered. He said, "No." It was so clear to me that he did not want to, run for president because he's not ambitious, he's not entitled, he didn't think it was his turn. He just really wanted to do his job in the Senate. And plus, now that we see how he's kind of going along with the Democrats, I think it's in his nature not to challenge, the Democratic establishment to the extent of actually challenging Obama for the nomination. That would have been too big of a move for him, as I now understand him a little bit better. In October of 2014, I met him again. I went up to Richmond, California, where the Progressive Alliance was hosting a fundraiser, and he was speaking, and then he was going to have his big speech to the residents of Richmond. And at that point, I asked him if he would, I already had my Bernie 2016 shirt on. This was in October, 6 months before he announced. And I asked him if he would do a promo against fracking, which he did do. And then I asked him if he would consider running as an independent not as a Democrat, so he could lead a movement and not just a political campaign. And he answered that he was considering that. He had heard that from a bunch of people. And so in April, when he announced that he was running as a Democrat, I understood why, the strategic reasons, because he wanted to get into the debates and he wanted to be covered by the media. And I didn't really hold it against him, but I just thought it was ironic because they limited the debates to 6. They put them on weekends when nobody was watching, and the media either did not cover him, which was most of 2015, or when they started covering him in 2016, they covered him disparagingly or dismissively. So also I started Los Angeles for Bernie, which is the oldest and largest Bernie group in Los Angeles with 40 different groups and 1,800 active volunteers in our database. So basically for the last year, I've been running Los Angeles for Bernie and trying to give my input to the campaign. I have some high-level contacts. You know, they never write me back, but I know that they see what I send them. And some of the things that I suggested actually did get implemented. But, you know, in May, I ran to be the delegate in CD 33 and was the #1 vote getter. So now I am here with my fellow delegates, basically trying to stand up for the political revolution. I mean, we were disappointed with Bernie's endorsement, but it doesn't mean that we fold our tents and go home. You know, we're still fighting for things here at the convention, even though things do not look like they are going our way. So sorry for that long-winded background, but that's what brought me to this place that I am now.
No problem. Thank you for being at this place you are right now. Let me just ask you a few questions. Let's start with the elephant in the room, the rules walkout. Can you give us your opinion on that?
Well, there wasn't a walkout, actually. There was real capitulation, I feel, on the part of the Bernie delegates. I don't know where this rumor about a walkout got started. What happened was I got there with a bunch of fellow delegates to observe at around 12:30. The meeting was supposed to start at 1. I was at the People's Convention in the morning. Probably should have skipped that and just gone to get online, because by the time we got there, there was a pretty sizable line. And we got wind of the fact that the room was full and they weren't seating anybody else, even though several times when the door opened, we looked in there and we could see that there were plenty of empty seats. So several people got in. Apparently, they only reserved 3 meeting rooms that seated 160 people, which was, I think, a travesty considering how important these rules were. So for the first 2 hours, most of us were standing outside, and we were actually watching it on somebody's iPad. They were projecting it to a DNC live stream, but it was funny because they had 2 TVs right there in the hallway where they could have projected it with sound, and they chose not to do that. They wanted us to go into some other room, which we didn't want to do because we wanted to stand there so we could get into the room if more seats opened up. So when we saw that there were at least about 20 seats in our vision, we asked, why aren't you letting us sit in those seats? And they said, well, that's reserved for the press who are planning to arrive. In any case, as they took 2 TVs, when we were watching it on the iPad and we heard that they were voting down every single superdelegate resolution that Bernie put forth, and there were 4 of them. One was to eliminate the superdelegates altogether. The other was to reduce the number. One was to require that they vote in proportion to their states, the way the popular vote in their states went. And I forget what the 4th one was. But literally, they voted them down in lockstep. It was like 108 to 54, which was the Bernie nominees to the platform committee was the 54, and the Hillary and the Debbie Wasserman Schultz was the 108. So basically, it became clear that they weren't getting anywhere, and so they called for a recess, which was very long, and at that point, I snuck into the room. The security wasn't so tight at that point, and a lot of people just went into the room, and we sat down, and I got into a little bit of an altercation with Barney Frank, who is the chairman of that rules committee. He was very negative about Bernie during the entire campaign. He just happened to walk by me, so I asked him a bunch of questions. And he continued, even in answering my questions, to disparage Bernie, saying that he was known as the Amendment King, but his amendments were meaningless, saying that he did do that VA bill, but that was all the way at the end when the VA had already collapsed and they had to do something. The whole time the VA was in trouble. Bernie was the chairman. He did nothing. I mean, it was really horrific, the animosity that this man has. And I finally got him to admit that, there's other functions of a legislator besides making laws and amendments, and that is using the bully pulpit. And at that point, he said, oh, yes, well, and I think Dave Conan has the clip of that. That discussion is on my Facebook page. Maybe he could roll that in. But he then said, yes, well, that is true. And it's too bad it took Bernie to do that at the last minute in the last year in the Democratic Party. And he left all the rest of us to fight those fights on our own. Where was he for 25 years? I mean, it was really despicable. So then what happened was they had the recess, and they came back and they said, Mark Lauterbach, who works for Tad Devine, he works with Tad Devine, he's the media advisor and chief strategist, which is a whole other story that I could talk about at some point, how his chief strategist's main strategy was to spend half of the money that poor people gave him on TV ads, which nobody watches, that enriched him and his firm. That's another story. But he was there wrangling the platform committee members, and he asked if he could have a meeting for 45 minutes with his members. So I decided to sneak into that meeting. I mean, it wasn't so much sneaking. I think there was a lot of other people that were spectators that were there who were not on the rules committee. I saw Winnie Wong in that meeting. I saw Nomiki Konst, who was in that meeting, and we were just sort of listening.
Nomiki in? Oh my goodness.
Nomiki she was in that private meeting, yeah. And we listened to Jeff Weaver and Mark Lauterbach basically put lipstick on a pig, which is, to use an expression that came around during the last election. I forget if it was applied to Sarah Palin or what, but that's basically what they did. They said that during that really long recess, they were working on this unity proposal, which is called Resolution Establishing the Unity Reform Commission. And basically, without reading the 2-page thing, I can just sum it up to say they want to start a commission which would be charged with reforming this whole process. And this whole process means the superdelegates and also the caucuses. Now, funnily enough, there was nothing in there about the open primaries, which is something that we really wanted to address. And I don't know how they missed that in this unity thing. But basically, it's a commission that has to report by January of 2018. And it's consisting of 21 members, including a chair and a vice chair, all with the right to vote. The chair is going to be Jennifer O'Malley Dillon, who came out of Obama's campaign. And the vice chair is Larry Cohen, who we know is the former head of the Communications Workers of America, one of the first unions to endorse Bernie. And Secretary Clinton shall appoint 9 members, Senator Sanders 7 members, and the remaining 3 appointed by the national chair of the DNC. So we're back to exactly what happened with the platform committee, with the rules committee. Clinton's got this committee packed with her appointments, and she runs the DNC appointments as well, of course. And they don't have to report until January 1st of 2018. And at that point, they submitted to the rules of the RBC, which they don't say what those mean, but I guess it's the board, some kind of governing board. And in the event that they fail to adopt any recommendation within 6 months, it goes before the full DNC at the regularly scheduled meeting. So in other words, they're kicking the can down the road 2 years. It's not enforceable, and Senator Sanders is outnumbered again. And what was sad to me, my big takeaway, is that they were trying to sell this. You know, they had enough members, signatures on this minority report for the very first, most radical amendment, which was to eliminate the superdelegates. They got 57 signatures on that minority report, and they could submit that. on Monday, tomorrow. When they left the meeting, Jeff Weaver was saying, well, I'm not going to tell you, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, because somebody was making a case. Hey, listen, we can vote for this. Even if we don't vote for this, even if all 57 of us don't vote for this, is going to get passed. So we can vote for this to show unity, but we can also vote to have, our minority amendment submitted on the floor. And that was going to be decided after the full committee met. They were going to meet up again after they resumed business. So I was talking to some fellow delegates, representatives of the Rule Committee on there, and they were basically disgusted. I mean, Katrina Bergstrom, who is she's not a delegate, but she's on the Rules Committee. She was just like, this is, can I curse on here? Fuck this. This is bullshit. We've lost. They're railroading us again. And she says, I'm not voting for it. I'm not voting for it. So they went in, they took a vote, it passed. Well, first they had Senator Sanders people speaking about how great this was and basically positioning it like a win. When I got back to my room, I looked on our confirmed delegates page, and somebody was one of the delegates. I don't know if he was on the Rules Committee or not, but he wrote this great post. We won. Look what we were able to accomplish. This is the most radical restructuring. Da 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 da. And I had to write as a comment, were you in the same meeting that I was in? I mean, we lost completely. This is a commission that has no teeth, that they don't have to adopt, and And can you please tell me if the minority, report did you guys decide to submit it or not? So I haven't checked back. I don't know whether they decided to submit that, but they know full well that if they submit that, it's going to lose on the floor. So, they basically, he said, this is what Bernie said. He said he was not going to submit any of the minority reports on the platform, which we were very upset about because we were assuming that he would, because he wanted to reserve his powder if there was going to be a floor fight on the superdelegates. And now he's sold us out on the superdelegates. So what are we going there for tomorrow? This dog and pony coronation show? I got to tell you, most of the delegates don't want to be a part of that.
Well, I think that we're going to first, to give a little bit of context, we're going to show your altercation with Barney Frank. I personally find it to be humorous that Barney Frank, one of the co-framers of the Dodd-Frank bill, called any piece of legislation useless. But that's my. I mean,
He was saying amendments. Bernie's amendments were useless.
Okay. So he made the point of qualifying it. So that makes it all right. He is aware. So we're gonna put on your altercation with Barney Frank. Is that ready for us, Dave? I'm gonna bring it up real quick. And afterwards, about you brought up a lot of the structural barriers.
That there be we insisted that there be the loans be made public. What he went further and insisted on with Rand Paul, who's nuts, was that the Open Market Committee votes on setting interest rates be audited. And that, when it got to the Senate, Chris Dodd talked to him and he pulled it out. The one thing he added to the Fed audit did not make it into the bill because it was considered to be too irresponsible. He was aligned with all the right-wing Republicans on that one, and it was to try and interfere with the Senate. As far as making public the loans, that was agreed upon by everybody.
Don't you think that there's another function of being an elected official besides just getting bills passed or amendments passed?
Absolutely.
And that is the function of using the bully pulpit to advance your issue. He grilled Alan Greenspan.
Excuse me, please. I didn't deny that. What I was saying was, when you said he was the amendment king, that sounded like he was legislative. I agree. He was not. His function was not legislative. It was to raise issues. By the way, I was also very critical of Alan Greenspan on the question of inequality, and I'm very proud of that. No, I agree. There is a function of raising the issue, and he did that. I disagreed when you said he was the amendment king, suggesting that he got things accomplished, which he didn't. In the specific sense, raising the issues, yes, that's an important function.
Well, he did do a very major thing with John McCain in reforming the VA.
In the end of his tenure there as chairman, after the collapse, they had no option but to do a fix. He was chairman of the committee when it went wrong, and then it was a kind of, oh well, we had to put out the fire, and that was in his very last year. No, I think you're right. He's been an advocate. By the way, Elizabeth Warren shows how you can do both. She has been both an advocate and a legislator, and that's why I think she's done the job better.
Well, ultimately it depends. Ultimately it depends on the people. The political revolution requires the people to pressure our legislators into doing what we want.
That's why I'm glad that Bernie Sanders now admits that he was wrong not to work within the Democratic Party for 25 years. I regretted the fact that he left us. He left that fight to some of the rest of us. I think he's right now to say moving the Democratic Party in a progressive direction is right. But for 25 years, he refused to do that while other people were trying.
Mr. Chair.
Hello. Yeah. Hey, Lauren, can you tell us a little bit more about that, about our case? But before you do that, I'd like to interject a little bit. I think that a lot of folks miss the point that Bernie Sanders was a reliable vote for the Republicans. I mean, for the Democrats for decades, and everybody's acting like that's not important. No, he was reliable. Did he exact the cost for his vote? Absolutely, that's what he's supposed to do. But he was a reliable vote for them. He was also a reliable vote for the CBC, who seems to have forgotten Bernie's name. And I think we lose a lot of context when we forget about that and just listen to these, after the fact gesticulations from folks like Barney Frank, who now works for one of the banks he was supposed to regulate. Okay, that's all I got. Thank you. Lauren?
Yes. Are we asking? Did you want to ask?
Yeah, Lauren, can you just chime in and tell us a little bit more about that interaction with good old Barney?
Oh yeah. Well, actually, I have more videos that I didn't get a chance to post. But let me try to remember what else he said. I mean, it was just so incredible. Oh, he called me a McCarthyite. Okay. He called me a McCarthyite because I said, what about he was trying to say how Bernie lost, and I said, well, what about the election fraud? And he said, wait a minute, where was there election fraud? What states was there election fraud? How can you make these allegations? You sound like a McCarthyite. And I said, okay, well, he says, prove it. And I said, well, we can't prove anything yet. We have suspicions. And he says, well, exactly. So and I said, well, what about, Massachusetts? And he says, okay, Massachusetts is my state. What are you talking about in Massachusetts? And I said, okay, well, how about the fact that, in all of the rural districts where they hand counted the vote, Bernie won, but in all the city and suburban districts where they used the machines, Hillary won. And he said, are you accusing the Massachusetts state election officials of corruption? I know these people. Shame on you. I'm like, wait a minute. I didn't say anything about any Massachusetts state elections officials. I'm talking about Diebold and Hart and all these companies that make the election machines. And you know what? I didn't want to say conspiring with Hillary Clinton, but I actually think that if there's any way to prove this, I think that's how this election was stolen. In California. And I have to say, I started Ballots for Bernie, which was a month-long effort to monitor the counting of the ballots. You know how there were 2.6 million uncounted ballots the night of the election? Only 43% of the ballots were counted, and that was the ones that came in with no problem, and early absentee ballots. But most of the ballots that were uncounted were people that had to vote provisionally because of how crazy it was with the no party preference, with the people that were switched to vote by mail, with the people that weren't voting in the right places. I mean, it was chaos. And ultimately, Bernie did narrow the loss. I spoke to Bernie's state field director, and I said, are you going to put people, lawyers on to monitor the counting of these ballots? And he said to me, no, they made the calculation that Bernie's probably only going to be able to close the loss to about 6 or 7%, which was uncanny because that's exactly what happened. They said that there would need to be 2 million uncounted Democratic votes for him to win. And there were only they figured there was only 1.7 million, because of the 2.6 million, some were Republicans, of course. So of the 1.7 million, they figured that he would probably get the same amount of the late-breaking vote by mails that Hillary got, which was true, and he would win the provisional 60-40, which was also true. So they were really accurate, and ultimately Bernie did not win the California primary. I do not believe there was any fraud there, but people were switched to vote by mail without their permission, and the people who know a lot more about this, election protection advocates, than I do, feel that that is how they're stealing the votes. If they're doing it at all, it's through the vote by mail, because these election companies, these private election companies, are the ones that tabulate these votes, and this is where they could change the code in the tabulator and do the switching. But I was talking to Barney more about the voter suppression, and such as where they purged the rolls in Brooklyn, and 120,000 people were purged. And he was replying, well, most of the places where they had election suppression were African American and Latino votes, and we know that went overwhelmingly to Hillary. And then I tried to interject, well, actually the young African American and Latino vote pretty much went to Bernie, and in several states, I was going to say Colorado and California and Nevada or New Mexico, I don't remember exactly which ones, the entire Latino vote went for Bernie. But he didn't want to hear anything. And then he said, oh, you're just one of those people. You don't want to listen. You're just like, I forget what he said to me then, but it was just like, because I wasn't agreeing with him, he had to attack me as opposed to rebutting my arguments. And it was a very frustrating encounter all around.
Okay, well, you talk about the legal voter suppression, like the actual ways in which they have changed, they purged voter rolls, they are maybe messing with the mail vote, the vote by mail. But I think that if we're going to talk about corruption, we have to talk about the entire spectrum of corruption that we saw this election cycle. And with the release of the DNC emails, we have seen a form of suppression that goes beyond simply purge and just suppressing the ability of people to get information about this election cycle, about Clinton, about Bernie Sanders. And so how do you feel about the DNC leaks? I'm sure you've read some of these emails.
Oh my God. Well, when I first saw the Guccifer emails, I wasn't as shocked as a lot of other people were. And they were saying, this proves that they were working for Hillary. And my opinion was, yeah, they're working for Hillary. I mean, the DNC, first of all, is a private organization. A lot of people don't seem to understand that these parties are private organizations. Even in California, where we were saying, why does the Democratic Party have a semi-closed primary? I mean, it should be a totally open primary. Anyone should be able to vote in it. It's so complicated how we have to get no party preference voters to do this two-step process. Let me just digress for a second. That's the biggest reason Bernie won. Because in California, just like in the rest of the nation, more and more people are registering as no party preference. And unfortunately, there's a party that exists called the American Independent Party, which is a right-wing party started by John Birch, that a lot of people registered for because it had the word independent in it. They thought they were being independents. And the LA Times did an expose, and they found that of all the people in this party, 73% did not realize it was a right-wing party. So they could not, unless they got wind of this LA Times article, and we were trying to educate people as much as we could in the grassroots, they did not know that they needed to change their party registration. Then there were people who were just in the right, who were properly registered as independent or no party preference, as we call it in California. And they had a two-step process. They had to first get their ballot, and then they had to request something called a crossover ballot, a Democratic crossover ballot, in order to vote in the Democratic primary. Because there were three parties that allowed this: the Democratic Party, the American Independent Party, and the Libertarian Party. So you had to tell your registrar's office, and in California we have 58 different registrars. They're all 58 counties, 58 registrars, 58 different processes. Unfortunately, the Secretary of State, Alex Padilla, who everybody's blaming because he's a Clinton surrogate, really had very little control over this. So everybody was calling for him to resign. I think it's a misguided call. But in any case, these no party preference voters had to send in this postcard or this request. And of the, I think it's the, 2.7 million, 2.7 million no party preference, only 15% did. So that is 1,870,000 no party preference voters that did not vote in the presidential primary. So we don't know if they tried to write in Bernie's name. We tried to get those write-ins counted. They said we couldn't do it because Bernie wasn't an established write-in candidate. Or if they showed up at the polls and tried to vote provisionally, in which case they were given a Democratic crossover ballot, and that if they were given a Democratic crossover ballot, their vote counted. If they were given a Democratic ballot, then they were put into the provisional pile. And in Los Angeles, our Los Angeles ballots for Bernie team was able to convince the registrar to count those voters. And the day that we noticed that they were throwing away those votes, it was 1,000 out of 4,000 provisional votes. So it was 25% of the provisional votes counted that day. And if you extrapolate that to all the provisionals, it could have been up to 60,000 ballots that we were able to get counted. But that being said, getting back to my original point, the Democratic Party is a private organization. They can do what they want. You know, this lawsuit in these lawyers from Florida, I really don't know what standing they have. Now, I'm not a lawyer, so I could be completely wrong about this, but they're having people sue the DNC because they're violating their charter. I guess it's their charter that says they have to be impartial. Mm-hmm. So they're violating their charter by advocating, for Hillary the entire time. I don't know how well they're going to prevail with that lawsuit. It's kind of like a private country club. Private country clubs do not have to follow the laws of the United States. So if they want to discriminate against blacks or Jews or whatever, they can do it. As bad as that sounds. Now, I don't know. I guess because the DNC does have it in their charter, maybe there's a civil suit that members of the Democratic Party can say, you're not following our charter. It's getting a little bit too much into the weeds right now. But to answer your question, how do I feel about it? I mean, obviously, I'm outraged. I think it's disgusting that, they would so obviously and blatantly try to stack the deck against Bernie. And it's suicidal because everybody knows that Bernie has the best chance of beating Donald Trump, that Bernie is bringing in all these young people, all these new voters into the party, that who are all going to stay home. I mean, we know what's going to happen here. Already we can see one gift of Bernie's early endorsement was that he was able to energize Jill Stein's campaign. On the day that Bernie announced, Jill Stein's donations went up 1,000%, and she got 44,000 new Facebook likes on that very first day. So people are leaving in droves to go to Jill Stein. There will be other people that will, write in Bernie's name, which is useless. Other people who won't vote at all. And probably, although nobody's admitting this, probably some percentage of people who are going to vote for Donald Trump. So, I mean, what's happening here is this is a real nail biter. And I think that the Democratic Party as a whole, the DNC, and every single member of the Democratic Party, as well as all the sellout organizations in what I call the nonprofit industrial complex who endorsed Hillary, as well as all the sellout union leaders. And when Bernie called them establishment, he was not referring to the rank and file. He was referring to their leaders who basically have, in a phrase that I heard, I can't remember who said this, they basically have traded pressure for access. And because of them, we could very well lose this election. And when I say we, I mean Democrats, and I cannot speak to what I plan to do after this convention because I'm a delegate and I do not want to have my credential challenged. But, we Democrats could very likely lose this election because of this.
I mean, just to comment on that, from my perspective, we have already lost this election. Unless a miracle happens and Bernie is put as the nominee, I would say that American people have lost this election because we've been given a false choice between, the establishment candidate and Donald Trump, who is I struggle to conceptualize him in my head. But I will. But regardless of what he is a byproduct of the system that we have right now. Like, I think it's a system that includes the Democratic Party, a system that includes the Republican Party, and a system that includes the media. We cannot put Donald Trump only on the Republican Party. We have to also blame their counterpart, the Democratic Party, for agreeing to track to the right that has allowed them to do this. Mm-hmm. And so I can't, and I don't disagree with you. The DNC emails are disgusting. And this appearance of this Barney Frank's sort of full-throated denial of corruption is also disgusting. Mm-hmm. And it makes you wonder whether he believes that, or if that's just he's just towing the line. Like, does he believe that this the ends justify the means, or is this some kind of just myopic psychosis where he's like, I don't know any corruption. Only black people were disenfranchised, and then they vote for us anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Well, say that because I said, wait a minute, are you telling me that in 2000 and in 2004 these election machines weren't rigged? And he said, oh yeah, but you can't compare what Catherine Harris did, with our Democratic election officials. It's like he sees things through such a partisan lens, and that's the problem here. That's one of the things. I was talking to an LA Times reporter. I was trying to explain why. I said, now stick with me here because this is a little long, but I want to explain to you why a lot of Bernie people think that Hillary is worse than Trump, because they're trying to use fear of Trump to get us to toe the line and vote for the lesser of two evils. And I said, listen, Donald Rumsfeld used a phrase called the known known and the known unknown. Hillary Clinton is the known known. She is a neoliberal corporatist and a neoconservative warmonger. And basically, neoliberalism has led to austerity in all the world, in the Western democracies, in Europe and in the United States, that has led to people becoming essentially debt slaves. Everybody's economic position is uncertain. 49% of Americans do not have $400 in the bank to pay for a car repair if they need to. They're also one accident, illness, or job loss away from extreme poverty. Absolutely. And this is all because of neoliberalism, which Clinton is a practitioner of. And then you add to that neoconservatism, which is basically overthrowing all these dictators in the Middle East who were able to keep right-wing fundamentalists under check, religious fundamentalists under check. We may not like Saddam Hussein and, Gaddafi and Assad, even though we propped up these dictators when it suited our, purposes. We may not like them now, but at least they kept these radical groups. And her policies, Hillary Clinton has never met a war or a weapons system that she doesn't like. Her policies, her wrong-headed policies have essentially destabilized the Mideast, causing all these refugees to come to these Western European countries and the United States, fleeing for their lives, fleeing for, to get jobs. And this exacerbates the situation that was caused by the neoliberal austerity. So that is why you have the rise of right-wing nationalist parties. That is why you have the Brexit vote. That is why you have Donald Trump. So all of this racism and Islamophobia is not a cause. It is a symptom of the greater problem. And therefore, you need to deal with the greater problem. Trump, we don't know what he's going to do. We hear what he says, but half of what he says is contradictory. I mean, in his foreign policy speech, he said two things. He said he wants to be isolationist. And then on the other hand, he says he wants to increase our nuclear capacity. So we don't know. He doesn't have an ideology, basically. He voted as a left-wing Democrat and made a lot of left-wing Democratic comments prior to him running for president. I think he's just concerned with his own advancement. Now, Mike Pence concerns me. Having him as the vice president would concern me because he is clearly a puppet of the Koch brothers. And I think the Koch brothers are probably two of the most evil bastards, living on the planet today. So if, Donald Trump cedes control of the government to this guy, Mike Pence, we do have a lot to worry about, in addition to their platform being so, ridiculous, right-wing. And of course, I don't, like I said to this journalist, I don't approve of their platform. I don't approve of more drilling. I don't approve of, getting rid of abortion. I mean, this is crazy. But here's the thing. Will he be able to do it? And that leads to the second part of my argument, which is that when we have a Republican in office, we have a vibrant Democratic opposition. And you can tell by just the way Barney Frank talks. They are when Bush tried to drill in the Arctic, the Democrats stopped him. When Obama actually did drill in the Arctic, the Democrats didn't say boo. Bush was the Texas oil man governor, who became president, but Obama was the one who quadrupled fracking, making U.S. the leading oil producer in the world. Okay, and we don't say it. The Democrats don't say anything. When Bush tried to privatize Social Security, the Democrats stopped him. When Obama actually did put Social Security cuts on the table with the Simpson-Bowles Commission, if it weren't for Jan Schakowsky and Javier Becerra, who didn't vote with the rest of them, if those recommendations had passed unanimously, we would have had the first Social Security cuts ever, and it would have been put forward by a Democratic president, Barack Obama. So I feel that if we got Trump in office, the Democrats would do everything in their power to stop these horrible things from happening, and there would probably be gridlock in the same way there's gridlock right now, what the Republicans are doing to Obama. But if Clinton came into office and tried to continue her neoliberal, neoconservative policies, the Democrats would just go right along with it. And that's what happened. Obama got the TPP fast track vote. He rode roughshod over the Democrats, who most of them voted against it, except for a few corporate Democrats who always vote with the Republicans. But basically, I just think this partisan thing is ridiculous, which is why I've never been involved in party politics, and I don't believe in being loyal to one party over another party, just like I'm not a patriot or I believe in American exceptionalism. I think we're citizens in the world, and we have to care about all of us, and I think that that's Bernie's philosophy, and he articulated it very well during the campaign.
Absolutely. We know you have to get going soon because you have a lot of plans for today. So could you just briefly tell us what you have going on for the rest of the day?
Okay. Well, today there is a March for Clean Energy, which is sponsored by the organization that I mostly work with in fighting fracking, and that is Food and Water Watch. And that is starting, 12 o'clock at City Hall. We're going to meet there, and then the march starts at 1 o'clock. It's a 1-mile march. Not remembering exactly where we go to, but I'm going to be marching with the contingency to stop the TPP, which is being organized by Kevin Zeese and Margaret Flowers from Popular Resistance. I went to their workshop yesterday at the People's Convention, which was a shadow convention held on the Arch Street Meeting House. A couple of former occupiers that I know, Shauna East and Jack Rabbit Pollock, who started Illinois for Bernie, they organized that. That was a great day of workshops. And after this march, there's going to be, I think at 3 o'clock, the March for Bernie, which is going to be the largest Bernie march, is going to be happening. And I'm not sure where that starts. It probably starts where the other one ends up. And then at 5 o'clock, Josh Fox is going to be doing something, screening his new film, How to Love the World, which is about climate change activists. And then there are a couple of DNC things for all of us delegates. Half the delegations are going to the Philadelphia Art Museum. The other half are going to the Kimmel Arts Center. I'm probably going to go to that for a while. And then we're going to have a little bit of a meeting to talk about some plans we have for the TPP at the convention tomorrow, which I'm not at liberty to speak about on the air. But suffice it to say, there are some of us who are not going to go down without a fight.
That's great. Keep on fighting. It was lovely having you here with us. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much for having me, and I guess I'll be reporting maybe a little shorter report every day, according to Dave.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to have you on throughout the week. If you enjoyed what you heard here with Lauren Steiner, delegate from CA, come back throughout the week, and we're going to have her on and off for a while. So it was lovely having you on today. Stay cool out there in the heat. Philadelphia is absolutely a hot box of, police and actual heat. So stay out.
Yeah, let me show you my shirt.
Lovely shirt.
And on the back it says, can you see that?
Bernie or bust.
Yeah. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Take it easy.
All right.
Exactly. I do want to touch on something she just said, and I personally, it reminds me, everyone keeps bringing up Hillary Clinton's foreign policy experience. She's been at the heels of, presidents for over, 2 decades, and she's had all this experience in Libya and Guatemala and, South America and in the Middle East. And to me, that just comes across as someone telling me that the town arsonist should be the fire chief because he's been at the most fires, and so therefore he knows the most about fire, and it makes a perverse kind of sense. But at the end of the day, it takes a little bit of time to put together why that is not the case.
Yeah, I think touching on something else you talked about. I think foreign policy is going to be an issue for us because the ground has already been laid in a lot of our foreign policy issues, and no matter who's in there, yeah, of course we have an opportunity to make it better or make it worse. But no matter who's in there, it's going to be a mess. And I think we would obviously. I think Bernie would have done a better job at that. But I think we all of us should make that part of our activism. A lot of times our foreign policy is left out of our activism. And I think we should go out there and make our voices heard as far as foreign policy is concerned. Now, something else that she touched for me. I'm sorry, were you done with that one?
I don't think. So it sounds like you're talking about is institutional inertia. Like we have these structures in place in oil industries, the military industrial complex. We have these things in place that in order for them to function, and they have been functioning for a long time, like we have to keep doing what we have been doing so far. This is the same appeal Hillary Clinton's going off of this. This steady march that we've been on for 70 years. And if we just deviate from it, something bad might happen. It's, it's like the known known. We know where continuing down this road gets us.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't think institutional inertia is an excuse anymore that we can, that excuses the way in which we engage with the world.
I'm not saying that that's the case. I'm just saying that right now, it's a ship that can't be turned quickly. Right. That's all I'm saying. Right. As I said earlier, we can make it better or we can make it worse. But a lot of it is locked in place. I guess that's the point you're making. But I think undoing all that is not something that can happen overnight. You know what I mean? Could we go out there and start cutting ties with people or changing the way we do it? People, absolutely. But there's Ben talks about it a lot, that the position of of POTUS is there are certain things that are not going to change no matter who's in the seat, right? And I guess along the lines of institutional inertia, like you were talking about. But I think a lot of things in our foreign policy, for better or for worse, and it's not all bad, for better or for worse, aren't going to change in 4 years. Could we start shifting? 4 to 8 years? Could we start shifting? Absolutely. We could start shifting, and we should in a lot of areas. But is that going to happen with somebody like even if Bernie could have gotten in? Is that going to happen? Could he get those changes funded or defunded depending on what he's doing? I don't. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Should we do it? Yeah. Even though it's tough, we should try to do better in foreign policy. Absolutely, and that's part of the reason why we as activists should make our voices heard in that arena.
I mean, yeah, I agree. I just think that a lot of people use the idea of slow change as an excuse for no change. They say if it takes 20 years to do something, it's not worth doing. Mm-hmm. If it takes 20 years to reduce our military presence around the world by 50%, well, we shouldn't do it then because that's 20 years. And, if it can't happen tomorrow, I think our culture is one of instant gratification. And that makes it very hard to engage in these long-term generational projects. I would say one of the reasons we have problems with our education system is that we are unable to engage with long-term generational problem solving. Like if you can't fix it in either, the span of a Twitter post or 24 hour, or until a 24-hour news cycle is tired of it, or within the fiscal quarter, it's not worth doing or rather, it's not a metric we're prepared to use.
Yeah. We're an extremely short-sighted society, and along those educational lines, we've seen it over and over again. We'll try something, we'll see it's working. Oh, let's try something else. Wait, this was working. We've seen it in a lot of areas, and a lot of times, a lot of the problem is that money poisons the well. These large companies will come in and kind of shift things around to suit them, whether they ultimately serve our education system or anything else for that matter. Doesn't matter. Is it profitable? And it seems like profitable has become a proxy for good. And I think that's another area where we're failing. We've got to change our mindset. Okay, is it profit? Profit isn't the point. Profit may be the point for a corporation. The fiduciary responsibility, which I think is kind of silly. I think responsibility to the greater environment and the greater culture and the greater community is more important. But we are where we are. We become making profit the only motive that counts, and making that the ultimate metric. I think we're failing.
I just want to awkwardly segue, just completely off topic. Go back, bring up Trump, and there are certain aspects about Trump not about Trump himself and his rhetoric that I don't, but the reaction to Trump that I just don't like. And so I just want to dispel something. Trump was not the worst Republican candidate.
Absolutely not.
From a liberal, progressive, sane perspective, he was not the worst candidate up there. That was by far Ted Cruz.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know Ben has said it before, but if Ted Cruz was the nominee right now, I would be in the streets for Hillary Clinton, shirtless, tattooed to my chest. Ted Cruz is frightening. Yeah. And I know that he came out as they say he was the only Republican debater or candidate who chose to not endorse him, but that's not true. We know that John Kasich, if I'm not mistaken, refused to endorse him, even though in his city. But I mean, no one cares about John Kasich, so but not even Ohioans.
Absolutely. But I think Kasich is the Republicans' great white hope. I guess it's the only hopes they have. But I think Kasich is their guy. I think they want Kasich in the next 4 to 8 years to be that guy. But unfortunately guys like Cruz and other folks get more traction because their extremists enjoy them and push for them to be on the stage or be in the forefront.
I think the Republican Party created their own. They created their own set of values for themselves over the past 30 years.
Yeah, values is a strong word. Yeah, but go ahead. Sorry, values is a strong word.
They created a platform, a system of ideologies, like an ideal candidate goes anti to an establishment politics. You can't demonize elitism and intellectuals and colleges and politicians, like career politicians, for 30 years, but keep trying to elect career politicians. You can't do that. And like they finally reached that point where people are like, well, if the Republican Party hates elites, how come all of the people we elect are elites?
The light finally went on. Yeah, absolutely.
It took a while for people to come to reach that point where it's like, if we hate elites, why are we electing elites? But the second thing I don't like about the reaction to Trump, and this comes from a lot of people who, if only linguistically, I don't know what you call it, pretend like Trump invented racism. they pretend like everything was so good and racially wholesome before Trump came, and then he invented demonizing brown people, and he invented demonizing black people, and if it were not for Trump, we would all be holding hands and singing Kumbaya. But no, like that's not it. Trump he's emboldening racists to an alarming degree, and he's revealing how racist American is, which I think that's healthy, a little bit cathartic, because a lot of people live their lives, especially within the liberal elite, pretending like racism is something that happens in a foreign country or in a different dimension.
Or only in certain parts of the country. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I think that we can't pretend like Trump is creating this problem. He's just revealing something that has these racial animosities that have been yet to be addressed by any politician in any real way and for the past 50 years. We're just not doing it. We keep burying it. We keep burying it. We keep like the Democrats keep shifting the blame off of themselves by I don't know, blackwashing their bad policies, putting a black face in their bad policies, but they allow racism to go on as a sort of counter, to themselves. And we need to really stand up and say no to racist policies. I'm not that afraid of Trump. Like, I mean, from my personal perspective, like I wouldn't vote for him, but he doesn't frighten me enough to vote for anyone else. I guess you'd say like he's not going to be the determining factor for my vote.
I understand. And Trump one thing that Lauren brought up was that a lot of the horrible policy that's really hurting us, and Nis and I discussed this yesterday for a few minutes. It came under Republicans. I mean, it came under Democrats rather. And we had this. We beat the drums for getting our Democrats in office, but a lot of horrible policy has hit us based on them being in the White House and everybody putting their guards down. If a Democrat is doing it, it must be good. And folks on the Republican side do the same. I mean, we can't act like we're immune to it, or they're immune to it rather. But back to what you were saying earlier about Trump is that how people are acting like he invented racism, and something I've been saying for a while is folks like these mainstreamers, especially the folks that end up on Sunday TV that are saying Trump is so bad, they get to wash themselves clean of all the racism that they've been swimming in for decades on the Republican side, trying to garner votes. All that racism is xenophobia. They've basically been using to beat the drums is now biting them in the butt. But they get to, because Trump is such a buffoon and Trump is such a lightning rod. They get to wash themselves clean by saying, "Oh, I don't support that guy." Therefore, and the subtext is, "I don't support racism." But you have for 30, 40 years, but they get to wash themselves clean because they don't support Trump. And that element I do not like at all.
Okay, well, I'm going to lay, because we're getting a lot of comments about what I just said. So I'm going to lay out something a little bit more in depth right now. Let me just remind everyone who's watching right now, you're watching the Progressive Army's coverage of DNC, the Democratic National Convention. I'm here with, I guess, my co-host for today, Strange Bedfellows, Michael Redwine of the Louisa Project, and I am Brandon Sutton of Project Sanity. And right now I'm going to just lay in on Democrats and racism and the problems that we have, and also sexism. So, get ready to hear me monologue for like a few minutes. So
cool.
The problem we have as liberals, because forget the conservatives for a second. I don't care about them. They're weird and they have their own problems. Let's talk about, let's fix up our own house first. People who have identified as progressive, is that the Democrats have been very successful in branding themselves as not racist. And not only not racist, not racist because they are not engaging in policies that hurt Black people, not racist because they are somehow pro any kind of economic strategy that would benefit Black people. They have made racism something that you are by political alignment, or that you are by gender, or that you are by place of birth. I mean, if you're in the South, if you're over 50, those are the racists. They have denied people who are under the age of 30. They've denied certain populations, based on identity. Like, so if you're a woman, you just can't be racist. I'm going to be very frank. Hillary Clinton to me is an unabashed racist. Like, the Clintons have said some things that in the past few months that have made me go like, wow. And no one else is willing to call them racist, but I will. Super predators, Bill Clinton getting up on stage and somehow promoting that we were saving the good Blacks from the bad Blacks with the crime bill. That's nonsense. We need to reclaim words like racism. We need to reclaim words like intersectionality and sexism and talk about what they really mean and how the Democratic elite, by dominating racism as a concept, have been able to brand everything they do as not racist simply by it being democratic, or not homophobic simply by it being democratic, or not sexist simply by it being democratic. So when you tell me that Democrats are against $15 minimum wage, that tells me that they're sexist and that they're racist, because most people who make under $15 do not make a living wage are in fact women or people of color or women of color. Like when you tell me they're against free college, that tells me that they're racist, because because most people who would benefit from that are people of color. Like this has come down to really not being afraid of calling a spade, which is kind of a racist analogy. but it's like I struggle with people because they have defined feminism and anti-racism in such a shallow way, in a way that it's really just, they've defined intersectionality as something that if you happen to be black or if you happen to be a woman, you just can't be prejudiced because you're oppressed, right? And they've denied people the complexity of their own lives. And so, like, I take a hardline stance against racism. I can't vote for Clinton. I'm probably going to vote Jill Stein. I live in New York, so that's my privilege, because it won't have any effect because we have winner take all system. So, but I take a hardline stance against racism, and I take a hardline stance against sexism. I take a hardline stance against a lot of things, but I can't. And even though I consider myself to be a radical feminist, I cannot, in good conscience, elect someone whose version of feminism I find to be very shallow, which is, I am a woman, and I can generally agree that women should make as much as men. That's not good enough for me. that's not what about my black and brown sisters who are disproportionately targeted for sex crimes? What about these issues? But I mean, that's just me rambling. So.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you 100%. I think we the language. I think you and I discussed before, at least on the back channel. I discussed with some folks accessibility of language, and then part of that is taking back and bringing back the language to something that's more suited for what it really is, right? If you say racism, as you said, like racism, but only if the Republicans do it, therefore it's racism. But racism is about results, right? It's about a structure that hurts people of color or women, or it's misogynist in that regard. But it's about results, right? I don't care how you feel about me. Honestly, I don't care how anybody feels about me. It's about what you can do to me and the future of my family. That's the impact that I'm concerned about. You can be mad at me. You as long as you don't harm me. I really don't care about feelings. What I care about is, can you hurt my bank account and the future of my children? That's all I care about, right? So we need to in my mind, we need to take back this language and create some more language that folks can readily understand. Like, for instance, the word intersectionality. Unless you look it up, and even if you do look it up, it's used in so many different ways. People just grab a word and run with it, and it becomes the word of the day or the word of this cycle. And very few people really understand how it works, right? But so you just go by what the cool people say. Well, that's what so and so said. That must be what intersectionality is, right? And it's been used to harm us this cycle. It's been used to really hurt us this cycle. So we've got to find a way to get this language back and take control of it again. And if we don't do that, it's going to be much harder to move forward, especially for us on the left, since nobody wants to hear from us anyway. Go ahead.
I think in this election, and I think this is where Clinton is finding herself being taken to task by Trump, because I think Trump, as an anti-establishment candidate who people can agree is probably not really a Republican, has the leverage to point out all of the bad things that Clinton and the Democrats have done. And he's putting forth a very compelling argument that the Democrats are not the lesser of two evils. They are just sneakier and more insidious. and that, at least I'm honest. And I think for a lot of people, that honesty, that bluntness, I know some people make fun of it, but I think being an honest douchebag is more appealing.
It's preferable, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's preferable than being a disingenuous progressive. Like, people would prefer someone be an honest Republican than a disingenuous liberal. To the point where, I think even I would. I think from my personal, I would prefer neither, obviously, but I would prefer someone tell me they don't like Mexicans and they want to keep them out than to get up on stage and hug a refugee, and then you find out 2 months later they've deported 2 million of them. That just makes me feel lied to. And I think that most people, when they have expectations, you can't expect something and get something else, something worse, and be okay with it. And so I think for certain people, they can't. The Democrats are being taken to task for that lesser of two evil policy, for being, just slightly worse than Republicans by someone who is not a Republican. That's really. And that's dangerous. I don't think Trump is a populist. I think that's a misconception. I think Trump is anti-elitist, and so it becomes more of a friend of my enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing. I don't think he cares about the people. I think he doesn't like the fact. I think he has a God complex. And he doesn't like the fact that there are people out there who have more power than he has. And
absolutely, he's a narcissist. He's maybe the biggest narcissist on the stage on the world stage. And that's saying something.
That's me. That is me.
It's all right. I love me some Me Too, but I'm not that dangerous. I don't have that kind of power, right? So I think one thing as you said about Trump, he's an opportunist. He's a narcissist, but he has the ability to spot a trend, right? And he's taking this trend towards xenophobia and racism that the Republicans have been beating for the drum they've been beating for years. He's taken it and really ran with it. He's taken it further than anybody else on this, of all those 16 other people. He's taken it further than anybody else was willing to take it. Right. So he captured their base. So is that scary? Yeah, it's scary. But I think this visible racist is easier to deal with. Right? I grew up in New Jersey, right? There was racism there, of course, but now I'm in the South. I'm in Alabama. Racism is a little more on the surface, right? Nobody's called me names or anything like that, but you can sort of tell, right? It's a defense mechanism we've had to build up over the years. We can tell, right? So I prefer to deal with that guy with the rebel flag on his shirt, and I know where he stands, right? But the guy with the suit on, I forget who coined the term. Jim Crow became James Crow Esquire, after the civil rights movement. He's doing this. He's doing the same things, but he's just doing them more smartly and more quietly, right? And I think we fail to recognize, even though Trump is a buffoon, and he's out there with saying nothing of substance, but he's saying what he has to say to garner that vote, and that's why he's dangerous. And yes, he can hit Hillary on a lot of things on some of her weakest points, like for instance, taking money from Wall Street and other rich concerns, war. There's so many things that he can hit her on that is just there for the taking, and he's clean on several of those issues, right? And a lot of and these are issues that are very important to a lot of people, and specifically independents, and that's going to hurt. And we all know it. Whether we want to admit it or not, people want to admit it or not. Bernie was much better suited to beat a guy like Trump. Much better suited, And we're watching people, because Trump is smart in a way that he gets you on his battlefield, right? And his battlefield is the personal attacks. And you're not going to beat Trump in those personal attacks. Not Hillary Clinton. She's not prepared for that. Even with the help of Elizabeth Warren and all these other folks on Twitter, they're not prepared for that, especially face to face. Bernie, on the other hand, Brooklynite, yeah, I think for that kind of fight, And I think I think that's something that a lot of people are missing. And Hillary would be better off shifting to policy and staying on policy, but she knows that also hurts her, you know. So I don't know where she has to hide in this cycle, and it's scary.
I mean, Hillary Clinton is a very weak candidate. She's not charismatic. Her record is not particularly great in a substantive way.
Yeah,
like her record, she has a very long resume. She's like a Carly Fiorina. She has a very long resume of things she's led that have all gone kind of poorly. And so if you just look at the titles, it appears that she's a good candidate.
Yeah.
But once you really engage with the action she's, with what she's done, she comes across as being a very bad candidate. And I mean, that's not particularly revolutionary, that's not a revolutionary idea. But when you compare it to Trump, a lot of people prior to Trump becoming the nominee and then right after assumed that Trump would, because they live in that sort of bubble, they just assumed, no, Trump could only ever attack her as a woman, because she's a woman. Trump is going to, be sexist, and that's not going to apply. Like, no, Clinton has some really, really, really bad flaws.
Yeah.
Really bad flaws. Really bad record. Really bad.
It's not going to help her.
And it's not going to help her. And I think that a lot of people, within the media, within the sort of the pundit class, because they don't view what she's done, they don't view the neoliberalism, the neoconservatism, and because they have a very, very specific definition of racism, which is, impolite racism. They don't mind. They don't like people who are impolite.
Yeah.
It's not even about the race. It's impolite to say those words, and that's what it is. Like they are not doing they're doing their viewers a disservice because they can't analyze the situation completely. Because the things
that's different. I think they're choosing not to analyze it completely. I think they're choosing to analyze it in a way that lets them off the hook, and which is, this is where we are now.
I don't see. That sounds like it's more like active and motivated. I think that they just don't see these things as problems. They don't see the super predator thing as a really big problem. They don't see these the issues in Guatemala, issues in Libya, issues as really big problems, because to them it's not their problems. Like, it's not a problem that defines their world. I can see that.
Yeah, I can see that. But if you can't see that as a problem when she faces Donald Trump, yeah, that you need to hand in your pundit card. And if you in that context. Yeah, it's going to be a problem, and folks need to recognize that, unless he is truly that stalking horse that the Clintons put in place just to help them get in. If he doesn't touch on this stuff during the debates, or when the smoke clears after this convention, if he doesn't touch on that kind of stuff, yeah, okay, we can pretty much say he was a stalking horse that people were saying he was. But if he's a sincere candidate, and I think his narcissism will not allow him to be anything else. All right, he's gone this far. He's going to go the extra. He's going to go the way. He's going to go to the end of the race, win, lose, or draw. He's going to cross the finish line, and he's going to cross the finish line kicking and screaming. And I don't think anybody's, including the Clintons, are prepared for that. And the pundit class is failing us miserably by saying, that's not so bad. Just because Bernie didn't touch it, because he was polite about it, which is another issue we should talk about and at a later date. Because he was polite about it, it doesn't mean Trump is not going to beat that drum until it falls apart.
Oh, yeah. And with these DNC leaks, and this is something that I always felt was going to happen if Hillary was the nominee, considering the treatment of Bernie Sanders during the primary process, Trump has so much leverage. I can hear it now. It's going to be she's a cheater. She should not even be here. And and what do you say to that? No, I'm not. It comes down to the old cliche, or the old trope. A dumbass has a point. It's just it's not he's not wrong.
Yeah.
He's not right as a person, but the things he's saying about her are not incorrect. And for a lot of people, some people are always going to pull a sort of well, if he's saying it, it must be wrong. But some people are a little bit savvier, and they're hearing it from other places too.
Mm-hmm.
And it forms this sort of overlap of he's not that great of a person. And I feel like I'm coming off too soft on Trump, and that's from my perspective is because I'm harder on shallow liberalism than I am on, full-throated conservatism. Because
I think my personal opinion, I think your view is balanced. I think your view is realistic, right? Because Trump is, I mean, the Clintons are going to face something they've never faced before. They're going to face a candidate that's really going to use the real things that they've done or not done in their political lives against them, right? Not the Vince Foster stuff, not the Whitewater stuff, whether that's true or not. All that stuff has been more or less at least pushed to the side, whether true or not, right? But this stuff in recent memory, stuff that not Benghazi, although that will be dragged out, right? But the stuff in recent memory, especially for an anti-elitist, anti-establishment candidate like Trump, just the fact that these DNC leaks prove that the establishment and elitists played Bernie and use their power to push out a populist candidate. This is gonna hurt bad. The toll that this is going to take on Hillary and the Democratic Party is going to be horrendous if Trump is really who he claims to be in this particular cycle.
I think that this is the problem with running a candidate who has too much history.
Yes.
This is the problem with running a candidate that has too much history, too many government ties, too much. Like Hillary's life sounds like a conspiracy. When you have things like Loretta Lynch going on planes with Bill Clinton, you have
that's gonna hurt too. Yeah.
James Comey coming out and saying that, completely unbidden, coming out and saying, oh, I wouldn't press charges against her. That seems unreasonable. And I don't disagree.
But I'm not going to press charges. Yeah, come on.
No, I don't think it's unreasonable to say what she did was not, worthy of her going to jail. I don't think it's unreasonable. What I do think is that when you use the phrase, what was it? Dangerously reckless or irresponsibly careless, whatever. When you use that phrase to refer to a candidate for president of the United States of America, that should disqualify them from the head of the FBI. But she was championing that phrase. I just think to myself, if I wrote the phrase dangerously irresponsible, but technically not illegal on my application to be, dangerously irresponsible, but technically not a criminal on my resume or a job application to be the cashier at an Arby's, I would not get that job. They would tell me, no, you can't. But that's going out on flyers for Hillary Clinton, that she's, technically not a criminal. And I guess with the DNC scandal, I said scandal, that shit they did, that's going to be the new cry here. Well, it was technically not illegal. And I think we have to come to terms with the fact that just because something is technically not a crime, it does not mean it's okay. And it does not mean that you should not be taken to task or it shouldn't reflect poorly on your character that you did it.
Yeah,
and like
absolutely.
this sort of, we have this low bar of, well, if it's not technically a crime, it's okay. It's like, no, there, some things are not crimes that are messed up.
Exactly. I've seen the word exonerated bandied about. I don't think the Comey was exoneration. He didn't say charges, but the list of things that came out in that report that was on that server or things that happened around that server, that's damning. I mean, there's no other way to look at it. I would love to be able to say that, okay, let's move on. But we're talking about state secrets. We're talking about the lives of assets out in the field. This is serious stuff. And to just sweep it under the rug just because it's Hillary, and that's really what it is. Just because it's Hillary, it gets swept under the rug. I think we're doing it a disservice. Now, a lot of people are saying, okay, but Trump is out there, he's going to get us. But that doesn't mean that she didn't cause this stuff to happen. I for one, I can't just just throw it in the garbage. Oh, okay, well, we'll just keep moving on because she'll probably be a better president than Donald Trump. I can't buy that. I just can't.
I think Hunter S. Thompson said it best. You can't vote the lesser of two evil option for long because eventually people start calculating that into their politics. They just, they just have to be one step less evil. And this system we have where people keep advocating that kind of thing year after year, that's something you do one time. Being forced to vote for the lesser two evil candidate is something you do one time, and then you fix the system that led to that. Because otherwise, the candidates just get worse and worse every year. And now we've finally gotten to the point where the candidates are polling at like 97% unfavorability. I think Trump is less popular than Ebola, and Hillary Clinton is less popular than being mauled by werewolves or something. And we have this situation where people are like, okay, well, hey, at least she's less, werewolves aren't bad. People like Twilight. They're like, come on, man.
I see Anoa has joined us. Is she ready to jump in? Oh, and Dr. Q too. Oh my goodness. I guess this is the panel coming in.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can the folks out there hear everybody? All right. Hey, Anoa.
Hey, how you guys doing today?
We're doing good. Brandon's been humoring me in these projects. I'm out here in these Project Sanity streets.
Awesome. Well, I'm pretty excited because we're about to have a pretty awesome cadre of ladies come on. I have managed to pin down Wendy, etc. So it's pretty good.
Why wasn't I invited? Why?
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's ladies only today, Brandon. I'm sorry.
Why when the single ladies come around, I can't come?
I don't know how many of the ladies are single.
One or two was enough. Not for me. I'm talking for Brandon. I'm a married man.
I'm just trying. You know what?
I will definitely. I'm gonna have a lady special, and Brandon, it could be just us and you.
I have a RuPaul. I have like a Rick James wig that I can wear, and
that'll help. Dr. Q.
Hey, what's up, guys?
How you doing?
You guys are just drinking some tea as y'all ridiculous.
Yeah, ridiculous is what it is. We get some feedback there, darling. You all right?
Feedback?
Yeah, you're
Just a little static.
Yeah, a little static.
Let me see. I might have to.
I think you're all right, Anoa. I think the problem is Q.
Everyone listening, just since I have the floor right now, everyone listening, I want to start a petition to have me added to the ladies panel for another show. Because if the internet has told me anything, the fact that I'm being excluded is sexist and racist, regardless of any other factors.
Yes, my woman of color panel is racist.
I know the women of color panel is racist and sexist. We're gonna start a Twitter feud. I'm gonna be banned. I'm gonna be banned from Twitter. I'm gonna say,
all right.
I'm gonna lay some truth on Twitter.
Am I following you on Twitter, Brandon? What is your Twitter, Brandon?
People follow me in real life. I don't have that kind of. I mean, mostly the FBI and the NSA.
No, Brandon.
So we're definitely going to start the Friday evening, every once in a while, chit-chat session, and Brandon will be there to do open mic, for sure.
No. I'm going to, just before I get off, and because since I brought up single ladies, there is nothing less attractive than asking someone to come to your open mic night on the first date. That is,
you just want to get advice.
This is going to be some advice dating advice from brother Brandon. If you do stand-up comedy, if you do slam poetry, if you do improv, that's a 10th date activity. Don't invite people to see your stand-up on the first. If you're not funny, you cannot recover from that one. Yeah. That's not unless you're Kevin Hart. Keep that.
Yeah.
So my crew is coming in, so we're going to get started. I appreciate you guys.
Hey, ladies, I want to do a panel on women of color in education in the future. Come on, talk to me.
I'll make sure I get you guys connected because it's a pretty awesome group getting ready to come on right now.
I see.
You all know, you already know Q and Kieran, but I'll let everybody else introduce themselves.
Okay, I want to hold up the line. I'm gonna watch.
Oh no, you're fine.
Okay.
I just have to go, so I'm gonna.
Bye, guys.
Can y'all hear me better now?
I can hear you. Yes, you're good.
Okay.
Can you hear
You're
me?
good. I can hear you. Good morning or good afternoon, morning. Good afternoon, you guys. Thank you so much for everyone who is tuning in right now. DNC live coverage, yay, Progressive Army, so exciting. And I think Wendy is actually in Brazil right now, so we're international. Our panel's international today. So I'll just give you guys a little feedback. I mean, we're doing pre-convention coverage. You know, we have people out and about. Ben and Michael Salomon and other folks are on the ground right now. Shout out to Adair and the Washington delegation holding it down. I mean, we have people actually on the ground in Philly, and we're going to be providing you guys coverage all week long. We all, of course, are not in Philly, but we wanted to come together to talk to you about some of the issues and stuff that have come up in the past few days. You know, Secretary Clinton has announced her vice presidential candidate, running mate. We've also had, the DNC leaks, but we continue, and this is something that all of us have talked about individually and together in various groupings and Twitter threads and stuff, is the use of, the use of identity politics to kind of control as a tool of fear. That's one thing that we've all talked about, right? And we've seen this now. We see it in the justification for why we're supposed to support Hillary Clinton without any type of real policy argument, anything substantive. It's just, ooh, Trump bad, And then we continue to have this discussion. One of the questions that got posed the last time I was on with Kieran and Wendy came on, and she asked, basically, how do we overcome this and what do we do next? So I wanted to bring on these wonderful ladies to have, an organic chat about some of the issues that we've been seeing, some of the stuff that's going on, especially as we're heading into convention week, especially as we're heading into this new era in American politics, not just in, bringing the party unity together. I don't know that everyone here is, on the party unity bandwagon. Well, you have on a Green Party shirt, sis. So that answers that question. But no, I mean, women that I have met across Twitter and Facebook and talked to and chatted with over the last several months, and I wanted to share with you some of the great wisdom and knowledge. So I'll let everyone go ahead and introduce themselves. And I don't know if you guys show up on the screen the same way you guys show up for me, but we'll start. We'll start with Dr. Mina.
Oh, okay. I see small thumbnails.
Yeah, I don't know if everyone is the same way, and I always forget about that. I should have wrote an order. So forgive me, everybody. I'm in the middle of twisting hair, so I did not think about typing up an order for all of us. But this is how sisters get together and chat. This is the real deal for you guys today.
Exactly. So I'm Dr. Nyasha Grayman-Simpson. I'm a counseling psychologist and a professor at a Baltimore area college. I teach Black psychology, psychology of white racism, psychology of women, and qualitative research methods.
Awesome. And let me make sure I give the crew your Twitter handles too. Q, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey y'all, I'm Q. I'm from Texas and I'm an undergrad engineering student, and I took off this past year just to get better, and I got involved with Progressive Army, and I usually write up their pages and do research for them. That's
sweet. All right, Wendy, you're up.
Hi, my name is Wendy Muse. I am working on a PhD in history at NYU, and right now I'm currently in Brazil, so my internet is a bit spotty. Forgive me if you can't see me or hear me, or if you're having any issues. But yeah, I teach on questions about diaspora, history of Brazil, and my research has to do with left-based organizing and activism between Brazilians and Africans who speak Portuguese during the military dictatorship here in Brazil.
And last but not least, sis, I know Kieran probably pop in soon.
Oh, yeah. So, hi, everybody. My name is Becky Alfaro. I am based in New Jersey. I'm master's level clinician of marriage and family therapy. And I'm also a grad assistant who teaches a comprehensive sex ed program out of an urban school district as part of a research program. And I think that's pretty much it.
Awesome. So I know we were talking just a little bit in our thread yesterday, just about, you know, kind of basically the leaks, Kaine pick, the excuses given and rationalizations from people about why we need to get behind Hillary. So we can, I mean, anyone can start just anywhere you want to. I'm not going to be like too like regimented with the questions. Just we have such great conversations and it just flows. So I'll let anyone start where you guys want to.
Well, I'll start with a question that I had, and
okay.
My first question was, how does the Kaine pick change the narrative of what is problematic about the Democratic Party and about its platform? I don't really see how it does.
You know, I would love to respond to that, because that's a question that I have felt as well. And I had someone turn to me yesterday and ask, you know, does this fix things for you? You know, he's fluent in Spanish and he was a missionary in your country of origin. And I was just kind of like, and I mean, this was a Latina. This is not, you know, a dude bro or anything like that. They were really, you know, believing what the media is saying about that this is going to unify the party. And I mean, I do not feel that, for several reasons. I think that Kaine doesn't unify the party because we never saw Hillary as a true progressive, our side, the left side of the party. So when you go even further right and centrist and moderate to choose your VP, I understand experience. I understand that he doesn't have a lot of skeletons in the closet to some people. I understand that some Hispanics will say, hey, he speaks Spanish, lovely. But the reality is that progressives he's not a progressive. He supports TPP, he supports deregulation of banks, and I think that when you see what the country has gone through because of these policies, and where we're, you know, Democrats are still out there fighting to get TPP out of the platform and things like that. And so when you see things like that, and then she picks this guy, it's kind of like, it's like an FU, in my opinion, to her critics. And it's just like a rounding up of her already existing pool. I think that in the one part that I understand about it is that she's trying to appeal to the Trump voters that are uncomfortable, that are holding their nose and voting for Trump. So they're going to look at Kaine and say, here's a white guy, here's a religious guy, you know, maybe this will appeal to me. I don't know that will be enough to counter those like me that are unwilling to vote for her. But I definitely think that's a solid question, and you know, that's my take on it personally.
Okay. It's I just real quickly just that's just the last part about, is it enough? I mean, we've listened this whole primary cycle about how important Black and Latino voters are, right? Like, if you can't win if you don't have like 95 or 90, whatever high percentage of the Black voter turnout, right? You need high voter turnout, and then you need like almost all the Black vote, you need all the Latino vote or whatever, and then, you know, it kind of balances out. And it seems like to some extent Hillary Clinton's Democratic Party is willing to kind of hedge bets that everybody will still fall in line, and she can get some of this other vote like you're talking about. And they're calling this a safe choice. That's actually a pretty risky and stupid choice, in my opinion, because I just don't, you know, and I'm really like flabbergasted at the excuses being made for this pick. And, you know, just Thursday he was praising TPP, and now all of a sudden yesterday he's against it, right? He too is against it, and it's just like, I can't believe anything he said. Up until 2010, you know, he was being challenged about his abortion stances. Once he hit the national stage, Okay, once he hit the national stage as senator, he got along to get along because he was actually a contender for VP consideration in 2008. But I'm pretty sure that probably played a part in why he got sidelined when he was governor. But now you have him on the senatorial stage. If you want to be groomed, I'm not surprised if people don't get told when they come to Congress. If you want to be groomed for leadership, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, you need to get in line with these mainstream party values. And being on the right side of choice is a mainstream party value, and he had not been on the right side prior to 2010. I don't care how people try to rationalize it. Well, he's on the right side now. He's on the right side now because it's politically expedient, not because he's this real champion. And we just saw Planned Parenthood and Emily's List and all these other groups. Bernie Sanders has had, whether you support Bernie Sanders or not, Bernie Sanders has had a long-standing perfect record on these issues, and they trashed him. And now we have the same groups praising someone who just a few years ago was on the wrong side. I'm not moved. I'm not motivated at all.
I think what's interesting too, this is Wendy, by the way. I think what's interesting to me is that
Wendy? Oh, okay.
Yeah, Wendy. So Wendy is in Brazil, and she has said that her internet connection is kind of flimsy, so she's going to be in, and she might come in and out as possible.
Okay.
Hi, Kieran.
How I feel about it is that
Hi.
really what's going on is they were picking someone who compliments Clinton and who will do, in my opinion, step in line with whatever Clinton wants and whatever she says. I mean, I haven't read too much on him, but he's being, advertised as a deal maker, and he's being advertised as competent. And they're like, oh, and he did an entire speech on the House floor in Spanish. And it's just kind of like, it feels like they're pitching him, trying to pitch him to millennials and being like, hey, we gave you guys some, little concessions here. We got you guys.
Girl, I guess I'm with her.
Right.
Yeah, like this, Spanish whisper or something, and it's just very strange and very odd, and it doesn't feel like, and they're trying to defend him from the left. And so really all it feels like is just this pick means very little, in my opinion. It just means that they picked someone they thought, would do what Clinton said and whatever her donors will say.
Also, just to piggyback off of the idea that the left is defending him, what are everyone's thoughts on conservative and Republican senators being very happy about this pick and sort of praising him on Twitter, and even the campaign manager Robbie Moore came out today and said, like, as though this was a good thing, like, oh, look at their party, they're endorsing our VP, and I'm like, that's not a solid thing that you should probably brag about. But what do you guys think about that?
I think that pick was to court the Republicans who are disaffected from the Republican Party, and in that way, I don't really know how the speaking Spanish and going to a Black Catholic church helps. That it appeals maybe to Latino and Republican Blacks, which, I mean, Republican Blacks are a negligible percentage of the party, but I just don't really, that's the piece that I don't understand what we're supposed to get from that. I get why he's a great pick to court Republicans. I don't really get, again, how the identity politics are being used in a way that's supposed to be attractive to, I don't even know if it's supposed to be attractive to progressives. Maybe it's to undermine.
I don't think they care. I think this is very clear that they just don't care. And I think when we look at the leaks, right, it's clear they haven't cared about progressives. I saw a tweet, someone was like, well, the far left can be upset, but, and there are people praising, like, this is great because this is in the middle. We've had the middle. We've had the middle for so long. And for the majority of Americans, the middle does not work. The middle means we stand still. Right. And yeah, this pick does not help. It doesn't help us move the needle. Who do
they get that they don't already have by parading the fact that he can speak Spanish and he attended a predominantly Black Catholic? Who is supposed to be impressed by? Who is not already impressed by the Democratic?
think that the people that they get, speaking as someone that grew up in the evangelical, Latino, conservative, people of color thing, I think that's who they get. I think they get the people that kind of really believe in this American dream and that have worked their whole lives and that maybe made it out of where they started on both, not to just be binary with Latino and Black, but other people of color as well that still they may think that they appeal to Democrats because of their color, but in reality they're conservative on abortion. They want God in our Pledge of Allegiance and everywhere else. They're very Republican when it comes to these social issues, and I think that in that aspect, while they may be turned off by Trump because of his rhetoric, Kaine is the pick for them because they'll see what we see. They'll see that he's recent on abortion, and they'll say, hey, like, you know what, actually Hillary, and I've had people when it was the Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders thing say, you know what, I like that she's not as strong on abortion as Bernie Sanders because they are more conservative. They just happen to not be white. So I really do believe that demographic, I don't know if it'll be enough for them, especially if, enough people go off to the Greens or Libertarians, but I really do, just coming from that background and having family members that are very active conservatives, like those are the people that are going to say, you know what, I'm going to go for it because I can't with the Republican Party anymore because of Trump. So I don't know if it'll be enough for them, but I do respect that's like an option for them, that at least there's some upside for Hillary with this, other than like it has been mentioned previously that this does appear to be a kind of like a Joe Biden guy. Like, I'm just gonna I'm gonna do whatever you say. I'm just gonna be around. There's not we haven't had a Dick Cheney, and I hope we never do again. But I don't see. I mean, if you don't like the top of the ticket, you're not gonna vote for them. So I think she's trying to pull in these people that maybe don't see her as trustworthy, but see his longstanding Catholicism.
And that's what people keep saying about him. It's like, he's such a great guy. He's so upstanding. He's so this, like, as if somehow that adds a greater boost. But it just really tickled me when they were like, but he goes to a Black church and his kids go to Black public school with Black kids. He speaks Spanish and he was a missionary. Missionaries don't necessarily, for people of color, missionaries don't always evoke the best image. I'm just going to let you guys know if you don't know this already. Yeah. But yeah, his pick wasn't surprising. I mean, it's what people have been saying was likely what was going to happen coming out of, the Clinton campaign. But it is, I guess, for anyone who was out there really hoping for some reason to believe in her ticket, I think for a lot of people, it did not provide that. The filmmaker Michael Moore, he was just like, who did this add? And I think what you said, Peggy, about how it probably did reach those people who are on the fence, who don't really want to vote for Trump. So instead of providing progressives an alternative, it seems like she provided a certain segment of Republicans an alternative, solidifying their new way Democrats as a different, centrist, center-right group, leaving us on the left to either get in line or do something different or go green. Yeah. So as we've seen, like, issues with the Rules Committee yesterday, it does not seem like the Democratic Committee, it does not seem like the party is willing to play ball. So where do we take this? I mean, people are in Philly this week. There's massive protests planned, which it's great to see all the civic action going on. But where do we go after this phase? Like, what do we need to start doing to drive these conversations? Obviously, all of us coming together and showing our numbers, that's great. But how do we continue to drive this and move forward?
I don't know if you all can hear me. This is Wendy. Can you hear me?
Wendy, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Sorry about earlier. Like I said,
you're fine.
It's a bit heavy for my internet. But one of the things that I just wanted to add about Tim Kaine, and then I think this can segue into the question that you asked, is that so his politics more or less reinforce the politics that Hillary Clinton already has. So as I mentioned, and I don't know if you all could hear it, he only adds about 0.7% in terms of increase in voter likelihood. So there's that issue. But I think secondly, the other major issue is that his politics, especially in terms of foreign policy and especially in terms of people of color, and in this case I'm speaking specifically to African Americans and Latin Americans and Latinos who vote in the United States. The thing is that he does things and says things, and the way that they're kind of framing his positions is in a way to reinforce the kind of neo-colonial relationship that the Clintons and people like Tim Kaine have with communities of color and people in what we would now, what people used to consider, quote unquote, the third world, right? So, I mean, his relationship with Honduras, for example, he was there last year to speak with the president, who is incredibly conservative and who has been pushing these death squads who killed people like Berta Cáceres and many other indigenous, LGBT, Black, Garifuna activists in Honduras. So there's that issue. And on top of that, he also, I mean, this same president that he was meeting with, where he used his fluent Spanish, right? Is the person the people he was meeting with, there were what's called the Southern Command, the U.S. Southern Command, which is the military group. It's basically a base that's set up in Honduras to train these death squads that then kill activists. So there's a very direct link between the things that Hillary Clinton did as Secretary of State with relation to Honduras and Tim Kaine. It kind of it creates a continuum of politics in Latin America that I think are dangerous. But in terms of where we go from here with him, I mean, I personally will not be voting for Hillary Clinton, and I am in a swing state, and I'm okay and comfortable saying that. I think one of the things we have to think about is not just the dangers on the right, but also the dangers on the quote-unquote left, or the neoliberal left as we now know it. I don't think that continuing to appease their need to have numbers, right, to have a body that's voting for them is necessarily productive. And as much as Trump scares the crap out of me and many other people, understandably, so does Hillary Clinton. For me personally, I have family in the Middle East. I have family in Muslim countries. I have friends and family in Latin America. I cannot personally, on my own accord, go and vote for someone knowing that they can hurt those people that I love. And on top of that, hurt my own family, right? I mean, I'm African American. I have members of my family who have had drug issues, who have been in and out of jail, who have issues with poverty. So it's very personal for me, and I'm not going to be a part of the process of enabling someone who's going to destroy the communities that I am part of and that I love. I just can't.
Yeah. Hi, I'm with Wendy, definitely. There's, I couldn't bring myself, there was, until a few weeks ago, I was thinking, okay, if I was thinking theoretically, if I was in a swing state, I could hold my nose and imagine myself voting for Hillary. But since the last week with the Tim Kaine pick and with the DNC leaks and everything, I can't do it. And I also have family in a lot of places. I live between the U.S. and Canada. So one of the things I was going to suggest, Anoa, is that I really think the U.S., the problem, the root problem, besides campaign funding, which is another root problem, but a second root problem is this two-party system that has a systemically marginalized and ensured that no other party can rise to the level where it can compete with the two big parties. And I think that until that really changes, what we're going to see is continued calls for reform within the party, but that only happens by conceding all kinds of important principles and issues, if it happens at all. So all that happens is if everybody moves to the right and the right and the right every election, it's not going to change unless there's real pressure. For example, in parliamentary systems like in Canada, where there's 3 or 4 parties, or maybe 5 parties even, each party sort of keeps each other in check. There's not just this two-party system where, as long as you're just not the other person, you're just not the other guy, you're fine. There's more than one level of accountability, you know what I mean? So I think that's the issue. And for me, my way forward is Jill Stein.
Yes. I guess I'll get started after that. I also am planning on supporting Jill Stein and trying to get my family and everybody to also go that route. Just so, what I've been saying to the furious Bernie Sanders supporters that are like, oh, Trump, screw it. They hate Hillary so much. What? Yes, exactly.
Perspective, please, people.
Yes, and we can build for the future. With enough people supporting the Green Party, we can change this country from a 2-party system to a 3-party system and more, and we can make this change. I think that we can also try to hold people accountable, but we are limited when we're within the 2-party system. You're asking people in power to give up part of their power, and as we've seen with the superdelegates, they're not willing to do that. they're not willing to cede power unless their livelihood or something that they care about is really, really on the line. And I love what Wendy was saying yesterday, or the day that the news came out about Tim Kaine. I was so furious, and basically my tweet amounted to something saying that while I acknowledge that I'm an atheist, missionaries have aided colonialism throughout the world, whether it's Africa, the Caribbean, Latin America, and to see that part of him used as like this thing, like, oh, look what he's done, it perpetuates the narrative that infantilizes Latin America, that terms it this third world country, and it absolves the U.S. of any role in the destabilization of those countries. Yes. Even with Hillary Clinton, you know, I don't know how many times I talked to people about her role as Secretary of State in destabilizing Haiti and Honduras, and her role with Colombia and the oil, and it's just like people don't care. It's like, she's a grandma, you know, and these things are so superficial, and it's funny, and we laugh, but this is what the media puts out there. Same thing with Kaine. It's like, well, he goes to a black church and he goes to public school. Oh my gosh. And it's like, okay, but then you hear these beautiful points being made where this analysis is really breaking down his role with this conservative government that has limited LGBT rights, that has done everything possible to keep the poor, and no one's talking about that. And they the media just consistently just limits what it is that we're hearing about. They're limiting the DNC leaks. They're saying they're switching it to, oh, it's Russia. But Russia didn't do the actions. You know, it wasn't Russians that were sitting there emailing about whether or not Bernie Sanders is an atheist. And it's like, it's sad that in this country, you know, 200 years or more after its founding, that being an atheist is still this scary thing that people would rather vote for any other religion before us, which is, it's absurd. So part of trying to tie into what you were asking about, what can we do, is support media like this. Support media that takes into account. I don't think that we are even aware of that this doesn't exist on CNN. On CNN, it's people with doctorate degrees in journalism and political science, and
all from some high-end snooty-tooty school too. Absolutely. And you would not have this many people of color.
Absolutely not. Or women.
Not as many women. No, not at all.
And I think that's another option for us. That is so important to keep the movement going forward, to give people something that they can listen to, something that they can be educated with. I mean, you're not going to hear on CNN about death squads in Honduras. You're not. You're not going to hear about Jill Stein, you know, other than to say, well, she doesn't have a shot. So I think this type of media is one of those notches in this road to continue the movement that needs to be powered forward.
I think that they just oh no, go ahead, jump in.
I was going to say, the thing, I want to hear you guys talk. I'm still figuring out exactly what I am going to do in November, although I'm wearing a Green Party shirt. I know what I am not going to do. I know that I am not going to vote for Trump. I know that I'm not going to vote for Hillary Clinton. But I am still deciding whether I am going to vote for Jill Stein at the top of the ticket or whether I'm going to blank out, which I just learned about from Eddie Glaude, which is one of the reasons I'm so appreciative of outlets like the Progressive Army, who provide such great information. I'm thinking about the long
killer. And go ahead. I'm just saying he is awesome.
I'm thinking about the long game, and I want to be careful to not replicate the same mistake that I feel Black and brown people made with the Democratic Party, and that now progressive people of color become a captured voting bloc for the Green Party, when all candidates running under the Green Party banner are not necessarily advocating the planks that are really important to me. The most distinctive one, I feel, is around racial and social justice. Yeah. So I need to see Jill Stein come out harder and clearer and with more courage and conviction around the party's stance on racial and social justice. I'm not just going to vote for her because she is the Green Party top of the ticket. But there are plenty of Green Party candidates that I will be voting for sure. But the jury is still out with me.
Yeah, well, Baltimore. Well, go ahead, Q. I want to hear your thoughts. Go ahead.
In my opinion, to me, this comes down to like socio-political spaces being crafted and catered to by the Democrats and Republicans in a way that centers their best interest or their donors' best interest. And they'd rather put all their effort, time, and energy into expanding and appropriating marginalized spaces that kind of sit in their intersections of political crossfire, and then turn around and demand that these same marginalized people in these spaces come back and support their efforts to continuously expand their base and appropriate their craft, because they'll be less violent than the other party in appropriating their spaces. And then when people come back and they resist that, they decide to further marginalize them or further push them out, you know, just sort of doing some weird colonial type of violence that, you know, y'all were talking about. And I think that we not only need to reconstruct these spaces, but we need to center them around sustainable and inclusive infrastructure that empowers and benefits more diverse communities, cultures, obviously the ecosystem and the environment, and how we interact with each other, rather than, you know, just continuously focusing on these spaces that are centered around what the politicians want.
Right, right. I think that you guys have just brought up just so many great points. Just to touch back, I think a little bit to I'm trying to think who made this point, but thinking about the conversation of do we go green? And I know everyone just automatically, Bernie Sanders endorses Hillary Clinton, profile picture. It's like people had their pictures just waiting just in case. Like profile pictures changed, group names changed, everything changed. Everything was Jill and green. Not everybody, but a lot of folks. And I was just like, okay, breathe for a second. I do not discourage people. I do have my questions and stuff as well. I did just read a really great piece by Kirsten Savali, who writes for The Root yesterday. She posted a note on Facebook, and I'll try and get that. I think she might have tweeted out a link to it, so I'll try and find and tweet it out to everyone. But she went through, and she says the same thing. She's not necessarily actually advocating for Jill Stein, but she's throwing it out there like people need to consider the options. And yes, we have options, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, we're going into Dem Convention Week, and we need to stop being led by the nose. I mean, for however many decades now, we've been told the Dems are our friends, they're the only ones that care, the Republicans are evil and nasty, and anything achievement-wise that has happened in the last, 50 to 100 years or longer has happened because of people-driven processes and movements, and not because this party. And let's be real, like 50 years ago, the Democrats were racist as all get out anyway.
Still are, by the way.
I mean, they still are. They just know how to channel it. This is just a little quick aside. Everybody's like, oh my God, Donald Trump is so racist. I'm like, Donald Trump is so racist that Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson have hung out with him. He's so racist that Bill Clinton has played golf with him and gave him the advice to run last year, and that's well documented. So they made the racist stuff. We weren't concerned about racism when Bill and Hillary Clinton used racial stereotypes to promote their awful legislation. We were not concerned about racism when Hillary Clinton sided with Republicans while she was a senator to build not a tall wall, but a small wall or a fence. I mean, we weren't concerned about racism when people were demanding, that people on the no-fly list a couple of weeks ago be denied rights. We have not been concerned with racism until it comes to Donald Trump, and racism is suddenly bad. We're not concerned about racism when Black and brown people are being gunned down at alarming rates in our streets. And cops, predominantly white cops, get off without anything. We're not concerned about racism. We have Holman Square in Chicago, which is basically a U.S. black site where people get disappeared in violations of constitutional rights. We're not concerned about racism on any given day in American cities. We're not concerned about racism in terms of what we're doing abroad, right? I mean, Wendy just laid it out about Clinton interventionism and Kaine interventionism in Latin America, for example. We're not concerned about racism in the Middle East because you know what? We're only concerned about our uterus and what happens here in the U.S. So please save me oh my God, Trump is racist, he's going to destroy the world. Have you looked at pictures of Syria lately? Have you seen videos of Syria? The world is already in shambles. A lot of stuff is already going on. And how do we have meaningful conversations of moving things forward if all we're being told is we need to support Hillary Clinton because Trump is bad and we just need things to say just as there are? Things are not great. Things are not awful, but things are not great. And we got to be honest about that. We're not going to pretend about racism when our black president is bombing and accidentally killing brown families and children. Like, we're not concerned about any of that stuff on any given day. But now all of a sudden, racism. Look, you know, I mean, like, I mean, we're people of color. We've been dealing with racism ever since y'all came off your continent. So, like, give me something better.
Yeah.
I think it's so such on.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, it feels like, you know, it feels just fake. It feels phony for them to bring up racism just as a tool, you know, to use when, like you said, we people of color, black people, non-black people of color, have been dealing with racism inside and outside the U.S. because of the U.S. Policies and wars for, you know, centuries. Like, this is not new. This only seems to be new for white Hillary voters or fans who want to use that as a way to scare. Oh, Trump is the boogeyman. You know, I had tweeted a number of things where, you know, under Obama, under Bill Clinton, there were, you know, all kinds of wars and deportations happening that seem to be okay. But when Trump talks about it, it's horrible. And I'm not pro-Trump. I would never be. I do think he is, I think the danger with him is not necessarily him, it's the people who support him. And I think that he's managed to consolidate, you know, get them connected in a way that Bernie Sanders got the progressives connected. So that's the real danger of Trump, I think, which is going to remain whether he gets elected or not. So I think we're going to have to deal with that. Sorry, and secondly, I was going to say that it's, you know, you mentioned Syria. There's actually, I posted a bunch of stuff, and there was a piece in The Nation a few days ago about how NATO actually had a meeting. NATO, all the NATO countries, they got together in Poland just literally 2 weeks ago or so, and they have been positioning themselves and doing these war exercises, and they have also given themselves, France, and they had a meeting where they literally have given themselves leeway as to how quickly they're allowed to use nuclear weapons. And they're basically, you know, this is not conspiracy theory. This is all reported in The Nation and other sources, where they are positioning themselves for a nuclear war with Russia, or for some kind of nuclear-based aggression with Russia. And this has been going on for a while. This has been going on for a few weeks, at least in the media that we know of. So my point is that this is not just like, oh, those poor brown people. Oh, you know, I'm from Pakistan originally. I have family in Saudi Arabia and Iran, and you know, people like me have been bombed by multiple administrations. So my concern is that we are talking about even beyond that. We're talking about a serious restarting of like Cold War era tensions, nuclear possibilities. I mean, this is not small stuff, and we really need to consider. And for me, that is like what pushed me over the edge, because I don't want either Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton on the table with Putin. You know what I mean? Who is himself not somebody I want to have. I want somebody who's going to be calm, who wants peace, who wants, you know, who wants to negotiate, who wants to make sure that we don't go into a nuclear war. Instead of uses that as another way for billionaire corporations to profit, which is what happens.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I think that education is also really important in this process, right? So one of the things that, you know, we're talking about ways to sort of move the movement forward. Sorry?
Was someone else talking? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Wendy was talking.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So I think that education is one way to move it forward, and I think one of the things that you actually mentioned was this question of Eddie Glaude, right? So he's been very visible and vocal during this election, thank God. Him and people like Adolph Reed and others who have been vocal and kind of coming out and saying, look, like, we have to be, as a movement, as a group, as people of color, as leftists, et cetera, we have to also remember to not forget this history. Because one of the things for me as someone who is potentially pursuing a degree in history is watching history as a field kind of get trampled during this election. So some people are holding on to the reality of what's happening, and other people are not. And I think part of it has to do with like a lack of recognition of these sorts of historical trends, right? So again, when Tim Kaine came out as the VP, and you know, everyone kept talking about the black schools and he does this and that, and all I could envision in my head was images and propaganda I've seen from Portuguese colonial regimes in Africa, where they were saying, look, so-and-so hangs out with the natives, look, so-and-so speaks the natives' language, and therefore that somehow legitimizes the continued occupation of indigenous land. So I think that we're starting to see these, or not starting to see, but we're definitely reliving a lot of these same trends that right now a lot of people just don't have the language for, because I think the community of educators that have not been vocal, I mean, they're a bit to blame too, right? I think some people have tried their best to really put the word out about what's going on internationally, what's going on in this country that's reminiscent of previous trends, but they've been getting, overshadowed by people like, I'm just going to name them, Smooth Cobra, and others who ignore a lot of the historical realities that we do have documentation of instead of acknowledging it. The other thing really quickly is I always say, with regard to Donald Trump and his ilk, would we rather, as people, as Black people, I'm just going to speak for myself, right? I would rather, I don't know if I'd rather, if I want to have an argument between which is worse, being called a nigger or being treated like one, right? So in the case of Donald Trump, he might call me that, and the other side may not call me a nigger, but they're going to treat me like that. They're going to put me in a position where I don't have economic access, where I don't have access to resources, where I can't get a decent education, where I don't have environmental protections, where I can't get a job. So it's sort of, you have to weigh the difference here. And if you're just going to focus on the specter of hatred, which is what Donald Trump symbolizes, I think we lose a lot in the process. We're not looking at the systemic issues that Democrats maintain. They might not come out their face and call us out of our names, or in some cases they do actually, but it's not as blatant. And I think people have trouble. They get stuck on what's obvious, what's blatant, what's right in our face. And we have a lot more trouble addressing issues that are happening behind closed doors that we're not recognizing, because we, in this sort of process of identity politicking, we get hung up on our racial, gender, sexuality identities and don't necessarily see beyond that. So that's why it's so hard to criticize Obama. That's why it's going to be equally as hard to criticize Hillary Clinton, because people are going to say, well, you're being sexist. But I'm like, wait a second, she's oppressing me as a woman. So what are we saying here? And I think we have to go deeper than just what's on the surface, and we have to understand the history of why what's on the surface is being held as the primary objective, when it goes on.
Critical education, democratic education, especially in states like North Carolina and Texas, I find myself wondering, where is the organizing force resisting that at all levels of education?
Yeah, I think sometimes it comes down to social mobility and economic mobility, and that the politicians, they really like to cater to people who have the mobility to move between political spaces and then the spaces of marginalized communities. But in doing so, they kind of, I guess they would take these people and eventually settle them in their spaces and gradually forget about the marginalized people and just leave them at the sidelines. So when there's people with families in the Middle East who are getting bombed and stuff, and they say they won't vote for Hillary because of how she's actively committing violence on their families, and people are like, well, Donald Trump, and it's just kind of like, the violence of spaces, or just the intersectional violence they get is from both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. And it's very hard, I feel like, for some people to understand that, because they're so marginalized and they try to make them so invisible. They just don't. It's very hard for us to say, you need to step out, you need to realize that there's people over here, and not just saying we need to do the best for the most, pick the lesser evil. It's just gradually going to make the evil bigger and bigger and bigger until everyone on the sidelines is gone, and it's just going to be all these rich white people doing whatever the hell they want.
Yeah, and sort of going back to this idea that we live in this sort of either or option, and I think that the problem with that is that, in my case, I live in a blue state, and we are very heavily segregated in this state and in our education system. And a lot of people talk about it like, so I'm from New Jersey, and Chris Christie, much like Congress, where they're obstructionists and Republicans, but they're not seeing that it's still a blue state. Our property taxes are the highest in the nation. Our schools are completely segregated. The school that I teach is Newark, and it's completely minority. It's completely African American, but not the educators though. in that school, it's a little bit more mixed. But the reality is that people like myself that have grown up in quote-unquote blue states live in towns that have high levels of lead poisoning, high levels of environmental poisoning, Newark being with the refineries, and just there's so much of that throughout the country, but specifically in New Jersey. Between, with the whole thing with...
I just knocked somebody's baby over. I'm sorry. All right, I'm going around here to Black Men for Bernie. I owe an interview to one of the founders, so I'm definitely going to do that now. Yeah, this is pretty live. It's a great crowd out here, folks. Pump that fist. No, we don't want. Oh, free. Well, free is good. It's live down here, folks. And y'all were wondering if they were going to show up. Black Men for Bernie setting up the loud horn. Hey, do me a favor and retweet this under the hashtag March for Bernie or whatever the hashtag is. Retweet this and share this. I mean, you guys got to see this. Guys, I got to switch my lenses, so I got to tuck you away for a second. This is what democracy looks like. Here we go. We're back. Gotta get that tower in the background. Sorry guys, I'm doing photojournalism too. Hell yeah. This is good shit, bro. Yo, folks, we're live. The march hasn't begun yet. Everyone's still gathering. Yo, the burners are here. Feel the burn is here. And this is just day one. That's me, Benjamin Dixon. Hey, man. Hey, appreciate it, man. Good to see you, man. Hey, hit me on Twitter so I can follow you. Yeah, we'll be there. Yeah, to share, swipe your screen to the right. Hell yeah. All power to the people. Yeah. These are great fucking shots. All right, guys, walk with me real quick. Boom. Revolution! Make sure you share this, retweet it. Here's a Bernie bro. Total Bernie bro right here. Oh, no, you're good. You're good. Excuse me. Right now it's concentrated in one area primarily. People are still coming in though. As you can see, people are still coming in, getting ready for this march. All right, folks, if you're anywhere near the area, you should be down here.
When didn't we have enough? When didn't we have enough?
They have a, let's see if I can zoom in for you. That's a casket with the Democratic donkey dead. Sorry. All right, folks, and this is just a part of it, right? So that was just the front. I'm coming around the backside, a few hundred people around the backside lining up. All right, will do. Somebody said slow down the pan shots. Well, I'm doing some photography at the same time, so I'm going to do my best. But thanks for the heads up. Right now they're chanting, "We will not yield." Yeah, so this is not just a Bernie protest rally. This is a dim exit rally. This is a protest against the DNC. Tucker Carlson. All right, folks, I'm going to save some battery and some data. Actually, I'm going to go switch up my battery and my data. so I could broadcast a little longer. But this is just the beginning. It's going to go on for a few hours, so be sure to check back in over here. Retweet, make sure you share, retweet, and we'll be back in about 15 minutes.
For those tuning in, these are clips from earlier today in Philly. Benjamin Dixon was at some of the rallies, the March for Bernie events.
The
Thank you so much.
I'm here from Vermont.
Thanks a lot. All right, folks, we got to bust a move so we can get in front of the rally. I'll catch you in a few.
Some people call it a prayer, but I'd like everybody to be silent and to hold hands during the invocation. So I'll give you a few minutes to hold hands, please.
This should be interesting.
Holding hands. I don't
Philadelphia.
see everybody holding hands. And we mean everybody. All right, silence, please. For whatever entity has brought us together today, who the Blues Brothers in the 1976 film with their name said, we are on a mission from God.
Philadelphia, yeah.
And I want to thank each and every one of you, your spirits, your bodies, your toenails for being here.
The coffin is for the DNC. The DNC is dead to them.
Everybody that's here to act in the spirit of, the attitude of, and the atmosphere of love, peace,
and
solidarity, service to our country, service to our fellow Americans, service to the world and all of its people, and to all of its people to come, and to all of her natural resources.
It's a large crowd here, folks. You see, this is just the front row.
At this time to
it goes back.
Friend, Nisa Hut, which means, the word Hut, her last name means truth. And she is going to open this rally with a song that you all know well. And while she sings, we invite you all to sing along with her.
Hope she can sing. All right, Solomon, I see you. Oh, yeah. I feel like helping her sing, but come on, audience.
America, God shed His grace on thee.
Found thy good. Come on, folks.
From sea to shine.
Don't mess up the lyrics, man. Not doing a live broadcast. Don't mess up the lyrics. Now let's do this. Excuse me. Picture.
Cheat sheet. I'm sorry, I'm 65 years old and half of my memory flew out on the feet of a bird the other day. One of our most famous Americans, Martin Luther King Jr., when receiving the Nobel Peace Prize from the Norwegian Parliament in 1964, said these words: occasionally in life, there are those moments of unutterable fulfillment which cannot be explained by those symbols called words. They can only be explained in the inaudible language of the heart. this is one of those moments for us. I represent an organization known as Philly.FYI. And we love you all. We are here today to ask all pilgrims to act once again in the spirit of love, peace, solidarity, service to our country, service to our fellow Americans, service to the world and all of its people. Go get 'em, boys and girls! Go get 'em! We are here today to encourage every organization who has brought their members to Philadelphia and every individual to join one circle to join and rally and march for Senator Bernie Sanders. After we walk down South Broad Street to Franklin Delano Roosevelt Park, a park that was named after one of our most famous Americans who said in 1944 that we all must remember that our government is not a bunch of buildings in Washington, D.C. It is not a bunch of senators and congressmen. But our government is we, the people. When we arrive at Franklin Delano Roosevelt Park after our march, you will find a stage there in the middle of the park. And that event will start tonight, and it will be known as Philly Awakening. This will feature 5 days of programming on stage, and we are offering time for any organization to deliver its message.
The march is getting ready to start. I'm saving some juice. And I will broadcast again from the march. Be sure to share, follow, all that good stuff so we can get it out.
Now I'm going to show some footage from California. Dave Conan of Project Sanity was at a March for Bernie in LA.
Let's go.
This is how it's going to be. And then it looked up and in Oakland, what do you have, 66,000? 66,000 people came out to see. Here in Carson, over 11,000, right? Right? Here in Carson, right? What about the Coliseum? How many people are standing outside, right? Okay, another 10,000, right? So we're in San Bernardino, right? Okay, so when you think about that, what did that do to you? What did it do to you? It connected us, right? And how do we stay connected? Right, we keep talking. Exactly, right? And so, but how do you come out of that comfort zone? How do you come out of that comfort zone? We're all so stuck in our box, right? We help each other, right?
Compassion.
Right, exactly, right? But the most important thing that we can do is we can start to change our perception. We have to look inside of our own minds and our own hearts and look at someone else and not judge. And not say anything but, can I find out about you first? Before I actually get a chance to try to know who you are, before I assume that I know who you are, before I assume that you're guilty, before I assume that you're going to harm me, maybe I should ask you first, who are you? Right? Because when you start to change the perception inside of your mind, and you start to get everyone involved around that changes the perception, and what are we able to do? We're able to stand for each other, right? We're able to stand for our Black Lives Matter, who is right here, right around the corner. Right around the corner, standing. Day 13, they're standing, occupying City Hall. 13 days they've been there. Tomorrow will be 2 weeks exactly. Why? Because Chief Beck needs to be fired. That's right out. And then my people over there, let's say it real quick. Chief Beck needs to be fired. 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 That's right. And that's for my people over there. Because they've been standing. They've been fighting this for 3 years now. In all different cities. Because Black lives are being killed at the mercy of no one. And that means something. And everybody standing here today understands that. Everybody standing here today is willing to fight for that. We even got a new person that's willing to run for the position of Fire Chief Beck. He's right here today. That's it. You're going to hear from him later. Okay? So this is how it goes. We get together, we talk, we find out who we are. We start changing that perception because we're talking to each other. Okay? And then we share that. And you hear somebody say something about someone and you're like, that's not them. Stop them. Don't allow the perception to move past you. Stop it. Ask your friends, ask your family, people you don't know. You hear something, that's not true. Have you talked to them? Have you gone over there and said hello to them? Do you know about them? Who asked that question? You're going to ask that question after today. Right? We're going to keep asking that question after today. Because it's not going to stop with just standing here and fighting for Senator Sanders and telling the DNC, you guys can screw yourselves because we know he's going to do something different. Okay? I mean, that's how I feel. He's going to do something different. And we just don't know because he can't say. So that's fine. We got your back. We're there with you. Okay?
I'm going to switch over now to a stream in Washington State. Eric Miller, also of Project Sanity, was at a rally for Bernie Sanders there earlier today.
And when you look around at all the places that are standing next to you, remember, how do you know anything about
Lacey, Stillwater, and Olympia, that's Eric Lee. If you live there, you don't give a shit, vote for Eric and talk to me about getting out in there. Thank you.
And that's how we started change. Let's focus on what is most important.
Okay, seeing your screen on screen. Yeah, your stream's live. Yeah. There we go, perfect.
Okay, so I should be looking at your thumbnail, correct, Richard?
Hey everyone, just bear with us just a moment. We're just transitioning teams and getting hosts set up, and we'll be right with you.